of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Has anyone signed up for public participation? Negative, right? Okay. At this time, we will close the public participation part of the meeting. But just a reminder, if you cannot make the meeting in person for public participation, you can send an email to Martha Sorois at masorois@methuen.k12.ma.us before 3 p.m. on the day of the school committee meeting, and your letter will be read to the school committee that night. Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Member Keegan,
Second.
seconded by Member DiZoglio. Thank you. Good to see you. Discussion. Member Willett.
Yeah, just a clerical thing, just on the spelling of my last name, it wasn't spelled properly, so just want to note that for the record.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I also wanted to make a note, my name is spelt wrong on one of them. I don't know if that matters.
We can fix both of those before we post
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
after approval tonight. Yep, my apologies.
Any other discussion? Member DiZoglio, member, you guys are trying to screw me up by switching sides, huh? Yeah. Any other discussion on the evaluation? I did want to make a point, and I say this for public consumption, and I say this with all due respect to you. I talked to the vice chair before the meeting and said, I'm fully supportive of the evaluation, and I want that to be known. I do not, however, agree that we've made significant progress on the learning goal.
So why is he?
I believe we've made some progress. And I think, that doesn't besmirk the hard work that you and your team are doing, and I get that. But I just, for me, when I did the evaluation, and I looked at the rubric, and I looked at the, where we were and where we are, still some ways to go from my perspective, right? And so, not a negative in any way, shape, or form, I just wanted to make that known. Any other discussion? Did you have anything you wanted to say about it?
No, this is just the
This is
approval of the
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
So we're
Oh,
gonna do
sorry.
we're gonna go through the whole evaluation
Blew that,
later.
didn't I? Yeah. That's what happens when I take a meeting off, yeah. Okay, appreciate that. Okay, so that'll take it up to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
I'll be voting present.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the staff reports. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 6 yes and 1 present. Staff reports, the superintendent, assistant superintendent updates. Are there any updates for us tonight to share?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Dr. Golowski has one update that she wants to share tonight that we'll have more solid information for in the coming weeks, but I think it's important she share tonight. Sorry.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give a quick update on the rebuilding of the media centers in the K-8 schools. So the shelving has been ordered, and it's due in mid-September, and we have professional installers coming in to install the shelving properly toward the end of the month as well. In mid-October, the next phase of Follett will come in, and they're going to bring a team of professional weeders to make sure that we have what we need still on the shelves and to remove what should be removed. And then they're going to take on the task of reshelving all the books in the proper order on the new shelves, which is a lot of work. And so this team is really great and promises to be able to do all 4 schools in 8 days total with their fleet of people. And on top of that, each of the new buildings will get an order of new books that we anticipate being between 30 to 40,000 per school. So we're excited about that too. So those will be shelved with the other collection.
That's great. Member Shabilia?
So can you hear me? Is this thing working? I want to start with the one that made me the most happy. For the CGS, all the poison ivy being mowed down and treated. I cannot tell you how many soccer balls I've chased into the poison ivy over the last 4 years. So that was a big one for me. There's a couple on here that say completed, but also say ongoing. So,
That would probably be my fault, a typo by me. Can you point them to me and I'll tell you which it is?
well, I mean, the first one is the second bullet. So I assume that we're just perpetually doing
Oh, right.
elevator inspections, but like there's a couple of them, and
I'll make sure those are corrected for the next one.
They're all scheduled, I can tell you that.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
There was a couple on here about rug replacements in the classrooms and the abatement being necessary. I guess I want to make sure that the rugs are all still securely down, so none of that glue and asbestos has been disturbed. Like we're in a good place with them currently where they're not coming up.
Yeah, I mean, so, and Ian can answer that too, but, so, right, the whole, whatever rugs are left in the district are on a capital improvement project list, to do that over the next, we'd like to do it next summer, to get rid of all the rugs left in any of the grammar schools. And most of the ones that are left are the ones that need the abatement, which is why we can't do them ourselves. But any rugs that are in those rooms are being secured. Now, I'm not saying secured by, like, really good, like, glue secured, but we're securing it so that we can't get underneath the rug. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, so yes, they are.
Does that mean, I mean,
There's no loose
They're trying to
exposed-
secure-
There's no loose asbestos or any
Right.
danger
No,
of
they're trying to
that
secure
becoming
rooms.
airborne.
Okay.
So no. If that was the case, we'd do those rooms
It'd be more of
immediately.
an emergent issue.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I know it's not on the list that you provided, but we all have been receiving communications from members of, parents of the hockey players. Can you just give us a little update on where we are with that?
Yep, so I emailed you all an update on the hockey rink. So Ian and myself and Paul Trussell, the rink manager, Bruce Stella, and the president of Methuen Youth Hockey met and did a walkthrough on Wednesday morning. It was really great to do two things, to actually talk about the boards, because there was some confusion about the need to replace those boards, and we have a much better understanding of the boards and the plexiglass around the rink. You know, they do need to be updated. They haven't been updated in a long time, right? It's so the glass isn't as high as it is that you see in new rinks. But he was fantastic. The safety issue comes from not the boards themselves, but where the doors are. So we know that we can actually rectify that short term and then have that be part of the long term. So where the doors are, the Zamboni door and the gates to the bench, there's just over time, there's spaces between the door and the wood. That's the spaces. I know a couple of the emails talked about hockey sticks getting stuck, so we asked him to explain that. It was that piece. So again, it's not the rink is not unsafe, the boards aren't unsafe. That was the most important piece for me to have the conversation. And we got a really good understanding of the process. I will share with the committee, and then it will be a city council, you know, at some point, but it is a huge project to replace the boards in that rink and all of the glass. Huge, I mean, lots of money. Because it's like we'd have to hire an engineer first. So there's an RFP for engineering to actually replace the boards, because there's only certain companies that could do that. And with ice rinks, underneath comes a lot of technicalities. There's glycol lines underneath that if we break those, that is a disaster. That's what helps us keep the ice cold. So we talked about all those things. So there's a process that would be here. I think for me, understanding it better was what I needed. And then we also were able to take them out to the new bus loop area to look at the back where the ADA parking will be, the new entryway to the ice rink, so we had some great conversations there. Knowing that his season starts on August 26th, the likelihood that we're going to be able to use those back doors on August 26th is slim. So he knows that we're going to just be in constant communication when that whole back area does open. That's the last step for us, right? We want the bus loop open first, and then we have to finish the back entryway and replace the door. So it is going to be a little bit before we have that all settled for the public to have that be the ice rink entrance. But the parking lot and the paving should all be done by the time school starts. But thank you, yeah, it was a very productive, I thought, very productive.
Yeah, it was a great meeting. It was
Great
awesome.
meeting, and he gave us some ideas, and we were able to tweak some things indoor with the new door. So that was just from his perspective of how many kids are coming in and out of there for his program. It was very helpful.
And I will say, I talked to the ice rink manager today about calling the vendor to look at those doors to see. The problem with the doors are they're all wood and they're very heavy.
Heavy.
So they wear on the hinges. So we're looking to see what it would cost just to replace those doors with lighter versions, maybe with aluminum
Fiberglass or
or,
something.
you know, structure rather than the wood, which would make them lighter, easier to open. You wouldn't have the gaps forming over time like you do with the wooden ones. So I actually asked him to call the vendor today to have him come out and take a look at fixing those problems short-term, while we think about long-term replacing the whole thing.
You're welcome, thank you for asking.
And I think it goes without saying, since
It's
you brought
good.
it up, the parking lot looks terrific.
Yeah,
right?
we're
I
excited.
know it's not finished, but any doubts that they'll get there?
No, none. I have to say, this is, having done a couple parking lots now in my career, which is kind of funny, never thought I would have this much construction experience, but this contractor has been just spot on, great to work with, communicative with Bruce. He knows the company doing the tennis courts. It's just been a really smooth process. The weather has helped us. That's for sure. You know, not having the thunderstorms and things like that we did last summer threw us back a little bit on all of our projects. This summer, I think they were lucky with the weather. So paving will happen on both the main entrance and the bus loop on the 14th. So that's this week. So we're excited. It needs a couple of days to cure and set, and then they will be line painting likely next week. So it really will come together within the next week. We'll be able to see it, visualize it. But it's
Awesome.
amazing, the work.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah.
How much work has been done, yeah. So.
Yep. So no, we're not, the only part is that back entrance to the ice rink door.
Yeah.
Not even the paving part. They think they'll get all of that done, but getting the platform to the door and the walkway, and then the actual door is a different company that will do that. So just that last piece, we might be into September to get that final entryway done
Yep.
for the ice rink. But as far as the parking lot and the ADA and the lines and the loop, we even talked to him about the drop-off, what the loop would be painted on the ground, so cars would have a loop to turn around, putting a gate in the back, so it'll be really clear for everybody that parents will have the opportunity to drop off kids with equipment, and or visitors who are watching can drop off and come in, and then they would go park in 3 different directions. But, so, yeah, he was excited about it, too.
If there's nothing, so, is that Eversource that's using the Tenny parking lot for storing, they put the bulldozer in there at night and pipes or anything?
Somebody's putting equipment in the Tenny space.
Can I just ask you to find out who, if it's Eversource, did they ask you?
No, we were not asked.
Okay, so,
So
I'll take an action.
if it's from the construction going on in the street, if that's Eversource, I believe that's who's been using the parking lot.
Okay, but they don't get to just want.
We also know it's a city project, so we weren't gonna,
Okay, but
you know what I mean? We weren't gonna create a
it
fuss,
is and
because
it
we'd like the
isn't, so
project
I
to get
gotta be
done
honest
too,
with you,
you know?
my level of satisfaction with Eversource
Yeah.
is at a nadir. Just ask your
Yeah.
cube mate over there, right?
I don't think we
They're
knew.
doing jobs half, you know what, throughout the city, and it's gotta stop. So,
Okay. Nope.
one more thing to talk about. Any other questions on the maintenance report? Okay, moving on. How about, does the committee have any questions about the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services report? I'm
And
sorry?
you guys can ask me. Hopefully I can answer all of these. Gina is actually out of state,
It's
moving
good.
her son
Yeah,
into
it's-
college
it's
today.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
In terms of, I know it's the summer, so we're not gonna have, obviously, any activity on residency enforcement.
Right.
The school committee unanimously reinstated the hotline, but it's not reflected on the website. So before we go back into
okay.
the school with the kids, I want that prominent restoration of the hotline, because that was directed by the school committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that was put on her page. Okay.
No, that was taken off.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other feedback? Okay, I'm sorry, Member Keegan.
Based on the staff report, I just want to know, do we have enough special ed teachers to start the school year?
We can combine some of this information if you'd like, if you want to move to the staff report, if that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Don't say sorry, because it does combine, I mean, there's a special education piece of this, and then there's a whole staff piece of this, right? So I think, I alluded to here, or Ms. Bozek and I both did this for, under special education, we are looking at some alternative models right now, and I would say that we have some work to do with the union and the staff, so I am not, I really don't feel it's my place tonight to share that information, because we haven't sat with all of the staff involved and signed all the side letters that we need for this. So, but we are looking at some creative alternatives to making sure that we have our sub-separate classrooms staffed. So those are the ones that are most critical right now and most vacant, at Branch Street and at the Marsh. So those are the two places that we have the most vacancies for professional staff and program assistants. The second piece of that is we already have Sula, Gina, and myself have met, and Colleen have met multiple times over the past 2 weeks, solidifying any final hires for program assistants to make sure we have already secured multiple staff members through contracted services already. And we knew we were going to need to do that in early August, because the contracted service providers are also going to run out of, staff to contract with us. So that is ongoing as well at this time. So we're looking at a sort of a tiered approach to that work to make sure our one-to-ones are covered, our sub-separate rooms are covered, right? There's a priority to this, to the program assistants we're looking at to have coverage. And then at some point, we'll probably have another conversation with the program assistant union about how we managed that last year to supplement people who were covering, things like that. But we do have a plan. I just can't quite, we're doing it Wednesday, so I feel like it would be really some unnecessary stress to our staff if they didn't hear it from me on Wednesday first.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Willett?
I don't know if this is efficacious or not. I looked into the paper recently, and I know Andover's, they're promoting the job fair. And I'm not sure if we've ever done that in the past, of advertising a job fair. I don't know of the efficacy of it, if it's just something you're just doing to promote.
Yeah.
And maybe catching some fish, so to speak. I know it's a very difficult market, and I'm not knocking the school system, and that was part of what we're gonna talk about later tonight. But have we ever done that in the past, of like
Yes.
promoting a job fair in the
Yes.
paper? And what was the result of that?
Not positive.
So it was just, Andover would be the same thing. You're just promoting it, just,
I mean, you're promoting it, you're hoping a whole bunch of people show up, but we usually have, I don't know, I keep looking at you because you've been in the room for those, but I know last year we did, the past 2 years, we've done one for support staff, lunch monitors, program assistants, right, all the support staff we can't find. And we typically have more of our staff in there than we get visitors coming. So it just, it hasn't proven a viable source to actually get staff. And we've done it during the day, we've done it 5 to 7, we've done it multiple times of the day to see if we can get different people. We've done different shifts in the past. And we typically do it here in the cafeteria because it's easy access. We did not do one this year, we just did not do one this year.
and
Yeah.
again, it does cost significant money to place in that in the paper. And like I
Yeah.
said, the efficacy of it, I thought, I'm in line with what you're saying, what you
I mean,
would be saying.
keep posting on Facebook that we have openings. I mean, I'm posting on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and all my social, I'm not on Facebook as much, but I keep posting the fact that we are still looking for support staff all over. Cafeteria, lunch monitors, program assistants. We're kind of in the same place we were last year. We're in a better place with professional staff, which that took us a couple years to get there. We are still currently hiring some professional teaching staff. But it's the support staff that, I mean, you can see the numbers here. I mean, to have 62 support staff open right now is right about where we were last year at this time.
Now, when they have like the opening night and welcome back and registration and kindergarten events, do we ever envision setting up a table and saying, okay, these parents are, okay, I might be interested in doing that during school hours?
Yep.
Have we ever done that in the past of like setting up a job table when we have these type of events for registration and kindergarten welcome back and?
Yeah, so we're not, I would say, we're more informally open about it, that our principals at the kindergarten welcome back events, I will say it openly. If any parent is looking for some support staff, like, I will say it openly. And if anybody wants to come talk to us, there's enough administrators there to come talk to us. So we are trying to recruit at every opportunity we can for anybody. I think the CGS had like a play date today, and I think Katie might have been out there at the play date, asking parents if they were interested in anything. But we don't do a formal thing, but we have the Welcome to Kindergarten event at the Nevins next Monday, so we can try to do something a little more formal.
Even inserting something, like, welcome back.
Contact information.
Just something, I know we're trying everything,
Yeah,
and it's endemic throughout the whole country.
It is.
Yeah, so it's something that, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess on the same line, Member Willetta, you're thinking, I'm sitting here thinking, it's hard to see this many vacancies, in PAs and things like that. And so, is it worth, like, going to Merrimack College and UMass Lowell and looking at their students that are at, not ready to graduate necessarily, but they're second or third year, and they've got enough training, and they have enough hours in their schedule that they could really support, and I would assume, use some money, from doing the job. But do we ever reach out to UMass Lowell, or?
We typically do for UMass Lowell and Merrimack.
Yeah.
The kids typically do BBEs for us because they pick their days. It's harder to do the program assistance because you're talking about the student service delivery. So we do have students who can do like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we'll hire them at this point for those 3 days because that's what they can do in their schedule. We probably have done the same thing for we'll take whatever we can get to some degree, but I worry about that for the student. Now you're being inconsistent with the student delivery, but I know we do that for the BBEs. There's a lot of kids that don't have classes on Wednesday or Friday, and so we offer them the BBE 2 days in the building that they could come into. All of it helps.
Okay.
Yeah, we're open to,
Sorry.
To expand on Member Willett's statement, memory serves, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the city council approved a tax abatement for senior citizens.
Right.
Could we maybe do something at the senior center? I mean, I'm not seeing them particularly wanting to be involved in a 30-hour-a-week PA position. Your lunch monitors, your crossing guards. Those abatements are gonna go a long way.
yeah, I can send something. I can send something to her at the senior center too and
Yeah.
see if she wants us to come visit.
Can't hurt.
No. We did do a job fair with the city at the Days Inn as well. The mayor and I and Ms. Bozak and a couple of city staff met with CTI, which is the organization that is housed at Days Inn to support, a couple weeks ago, I think now. And that idea came up. The director over there, said, are there jobs, we're trying to get more of the younger kids into Head Start and daycare programs so the adults can work. And we said, we got jobs, right? We have jobs, we'll show up. Unfortunately, it didn't, for us anyway. I don't know how you guys panned out. Yeah, it didn't, we didn't get any bites from that. I sent 3 or 4 staff there that day, Colleen being one of them, both principals from the CGS in Marsh, and it didn't result in much
Yeah.
anything, I don't think, for us.
Same on the city side, nothing.
Yeah, so we're willing and trying out there to get anybody we can. Not sure what's happening. Oh, okay.
My coughing's disruptive?
When you cough, you gotta hit the button.
Okay, sorry. My
But yes,
apologies.
the senior center I'll definitely do. I'll send something to her if there's a good time for us to come, or if she wants to just even give out the information, that would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Any other questions about the school staffing report? Oh, sorry, Member DeZoglia?
Yeah, to touch on asking Merrimack and ULOL, I know for me, for my master's, I had to do hours for my placement and stuff. Do we have kids doing their placement here
Yes.
as well?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
Merrimack and Lowell, and now Riviere, we're gonna start getting some student teachers and observations from Riviere as well, we're partnering with. So we're trying to branch out to some of our different schools. Riviere is one of them that we're trying to branch out to. It's one of the few schools that allows students to actually either get certified in New Hampshire or Massachusetts, because it's so close to the border, which is helpful for us. Because if the kids live in Massachusetts, right, and either travel to Riviere or do live on campus, sometimes they want to still stay in Massachusetts, which is great.
And have we thought about hiring them as well? Because I know Ms. Donovan knows this as well. But for me to work with her at the Tenny as a para, I was doing my placement there as well. So
Yes, that's what I was saying, that mostly we're hiring, I know you were hired as a para, but
yeah.
the kids who have the time and the space in their schedule, we typically do it by day and do the BBE,
Yeah.
right? So that the principals know that they have these kids on these days and can actually use them in the spaces they need. Probably not necessarily assign them to a para, because then we still have holes on the days they can't do it, right? And that's student-facing services, so it just makes more challenges. But yeah, we definitely have, I think, probably in, if not all the schools, more than half of our schools, we have college students as BBEs doing a couple days a week, or doing some hours for their student teaching or observation, and can do a day or two as a BBE to get some experience. We definitely support that, welcome that. Whoever wants to come, we will take them. Yeah, and a lot of them are our former graduates, which we also love, right? Yeah. Great, couple ideas there. It's excellent.
I think you're here to watch me. At city council, they
Here all
have,
night.
they have a white light, especially for me, it pops on. So, yeah, yeah. Go to the light, man, go to the light, yeah. Old business and under pending matters, there are none. New business. May I have a motion and a second to approve policy number AC, non-discrimination and harassment, revise and readopt, first and final read.
So moved.
Second.
Shibilia, seconded by Member DeZoglio. Discussion.
So, yep, so I'll say there's a memo there that Ms. Bozak added. So this is, and I gave you some subsequent information on, I think, Thursday evening or Friday. One of the members had asked for, where did this come from? It is law, and it's actually in effect now. So it took effect on August 1st. So we received knowledge of this from our legal counsel somewhere in April. I think I gave you that memo as well, that this was coming and going to be, resulting in some work over the summer for them to rewrite our policies and also do training, which our staff will be trained on August 23rd. That's when they are coming for a half day of training on the new law for our staff. So there's a lot of work that's happening, but it is already in place, so I have to adhere to it. You have to adhere to it as the school committee, I should say. We do, as the district. There are things we have to do.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the information from the superintendent
You're welcome.
on this. The concern I have is that these regulations, to my knowledge, didn't originate from an act of Congress. This is not a public law or amendments to Title IX. These regulations emerged from the administration. And there's a significant part of the country that's in strong opposition to the regulations. Now, part of the regulations I support, but part of the regulations I'm very concerned about, because I believe it's encroaching upon services and activities that it should not be doing. And when you have in the past the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, major education landmark laws, you do it on a bipartisan basis. This was no bipartisan basis on these regulations. There's strong opposition in Congress and a division in Congress on these regulations. I'm very concerned about the MIAA and how they address sports. I'm concerned again about encroachment. I know I'm not going to be on a prevailing side, and I'm fine with that. But I have to stand on principle that this did not, unless someone can tell me the public law, and everything I've read, it was regulations issued by an administration, and we're talking an administrative state that's been curtailed by the Supreme Court. What it should have been done is a compromise through an act of Congress, became a public law, bipartisanship, right? This is not a hunky-dory, everybody kumbaya regulations. There's like 26 states in opposition to it. There's schools in Massachusetts in opposition to it. There's schools in California that are in opposition to it. So without invoking what my specific concerns are about, because I'll talk to people on the side, and I have to balance because we have students that have that situation, and I'm always sympathetic to that, but the process itself reeks like something rotten in Denmark. So that's my 2 cents. I'll be voting against it. If anybody wants to talk to me separately, I'll be there to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Shabilia.
So I guess I need to understand, to Member Willette's point, was there a regulation change? Is this being mandated?
It is my understanding it is being mandated. I don't know how else to take it other than you better do this. That's the emails and information we get because it is the federal law. So there are repercussions if we don't do it. So if the committee is, Massachusetts is not one of the states that is wholesale fighting this. So there it might be individual, but Massachusetts isn't one of those states right now. So we haven't been told not to adhere to this.
Okay.
And that's our legal counsel's work with us, and every district that they work with on the language is, I'm sure, the same in every district that they've worked with. This
Right.
is what we get. And the training that we're gonna get is gonna be the same as what they're gonna do in every district, right? So
So,
I don't know how else to say that other than like, this is what we are being told to do, and getting emails like the one I sent you was in an email.
and I assume that,
Right, from the Office of Civil Rights.
come from DESE?
Say that, I'm sorry.
I assume those emails are flowing down from DESE?
No, those are coming from the Office of Civil Rights. That's not even coming from DESE. This is federal. They're coming from a federal rolling
oversight.
into us, yeah,
I just
quickly.
assumed it would roll down to DESE and then DESE would
I
disseminate
mean,
it, but
DESE is
either way, it's
saying,
getting
don't,
to
you know,
so.
I mean, DESE is doing the reminders that the law is in effect now to make sure, but it's not the information that I sent to you. That came from the Office of Civil Rights, right? Federal to state, so that, the different department.
So I understand that this is all boilerplate, and whatever is happening out there in politics land will work itself out, and someone will tell you and you'll tell us.
Right.
But in the meantime, when I look at this, my one call out and caveat, knowing that these are templated documents and there's not a lot of room for change, I would like to see a mandated disclosure added. And what I mean by that is, if a parent, a employee, whoever goes to administration and says, hey, this is what happened, it shouldn't be, oh, okay. That administrator, or that receiving party should be required to say, this is a issue under Title IX. We have a Title IX administrator.
Yes.
You have rights and options under Title IX. Please contact, I think it's.
So that is here. That is here. It's not in here, but it's actually in the non-discrimination. It's under the grievance procedures and policy.
So there's no requirement for the administration to tell a parent when they come in that they have a right under Title IX. It says that it's there, we have a right under Title IX, but there's no mandate for a receiving party to tell a parent, I'm sorry this happened to you, this is a crappy situation, you may want to go talk to the Assistant Superintendent Bozak and have a conversation about your Title IX rights.
Oh, I understand what you're saying, not the actual procedure once it happens.
Right.
Because that's very formal.
So
Grievance procedure has also changed to adhere to the regulations.
my proposal, if I could get it to,
I understand.
for a friendly amendment, would be something along the lines of, upon receipt of a complaint that would be covered by Title IX, building-based staff are required to inform the reporting party of Title IX their rights to file a complaint which would cause an investigation. In addition, they should be required to provide the Title IX administrator's contact info should the reporting party need more information or wish to file that claim. And I think that that information should go into both the non-discrimination and the sexual harassment, so AC and ACAB.
Okay. What ECAB is actually what we're rescinding tonight.
Oh, and it will just go to AC?
It'll go to AC, and then if I had to add the language to the discrimination notice in the handbook, I would add it to that. That's a different level of, that's not a policy by itself, but there was a non-discrimination notice that we are required to post in the student handbook.
Right.
So if that needed to be in both places, I would add that to those two places.
I quite frankly think it should be in all the places, including the training. That way, staff are aware and parents aren't expected to just have our somewhat convoluted website memorized.
Yeah.
So-
I hate the fact that Ms. Bozak's not here, but I don't have an issue with that because you're not asking me to make this less of what the law is asking us to. So I'm okay with that friendly amendment. It just simply means, I totally understand what you're asking. It's at that moment, that starting moment, right? Remember, Shabilia?
Yes.
It's not when the moment happens, we have the grievance procedures. It's that starting moment to determine if the grievance procedures are actually going to be put in place, right?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I completely know what you're saying, so I have no problem with the friendly amendment.
I'll second your friendly amendment.
Thank you.
You might have to completely repeat what you said, or
I
maybe
will.
type it,
so
email,
I
or write it
can
down for me.
Email it to Martha tomorrow.
Okay,
But I can repeat it again if the body requires or wishes.
that would be
We're gonna
great.
vote, so can you repeat? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great if you want to do a friendly amendment to the vote and read it one more time. That's way Martha can get it too off the recording for the minutes.
Upon receipt of the complaint, that would be covered by...
Where would you want this written? I'm sorry, at the end? Is there a certain part that you're looking at to actually interject that?
Not anywhere particular. I mean, it's a short document, so as long as it's in there,
Okay,
it fits.
okay.
So the body of the text, friendly amendment would read, upon receipt of the complaint that would be covered by Title IX, building-based staff are required to inform the reporting party of their Title IX rights, the right to file a complaint, which would cause an investigation. In addition, they will be required to provide the Title IX administrator's contact information should the reporting party require more information or wish to file a claim.
So there's a friendly amendment on the floor. We've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion, or we'll go to a vote? Member DeZoglo, did you have something?
I do, but I don't know if I should word it properly in this. I'm just trying to, because
And we are asking, I'm sorry, I don't know if you said it, Mayor, and if you did, I'm sorry, we are asking for this to be a first and final tonight, so we can actually get it in the handbook appropriately. We don't often do that, but sometimes we do in cases like this, just so we can get it organized appropriately.
Now or never, Member DeZoglia.
I have concerns about this mandate. But what my personal preference is compared to what it is for my constituents is a totally different thing. That's why I'm thinking about abstaining to it. Because I feel it's questioning that this could open up doors. And I'm concerned about that. And so, I just,
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, so the motion on the floor is for a friendly amendment that Member Shabilia just read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Oh,
And we
no.
have
I'm abstain.
abstained, right? Okay. I'm sorry? So 3 abstains. Motion carries. Thank you, Member Shabilia. Moving on to the, I have a motion and a I need a motion and a second to rescind policy ACAB, harassment policy 2019, first read.
Well, we have to
And that-
still finish the vote
Oh, I'm
on the
sorry.
amended
Thank you
policy.
very much. Yeah, yeah. So, we have to go back and, vote on the amended, policy AC. So can I get a motion to,
We already have the motion.
we do?
I motioned it, Member DeZoglio seconded it, so we're just looking for a roll call on that.
So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
And abstain.
What did you say, Member DeZoglio?
I'm going to abstain.
So 2 noes and an abstain. Did I get that right? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all. My apologies. Yep. I take one meeting off and I'm getting all rusty. All right. May I have a motion and a second to rescind policy ACAB, harassment policy 2019, first read?
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Member Shabilia, seconded by the Vice Chair.
So
Discussion.
So if I could just share a little bit about this, why we're doing this tonight. This is one that unfortunately we realize has been overlooked for a couple of years now, and there's repeating and contradictory information in this policy compared to our updated policy that you guys, like even the most recent updated policy, AC. So that was the advice of Attorney Joyce, was to adopt the new AC, have the non-discrimination notice in both handbooks posted as required, and rescind this one, because this one is now old and very outdated. So that's why we're doing this process. This doesn't have to be first and final, because this policy actually isn't in our handbook. It's a standalone policy, so we can do first read tonight to rescind, and then a second read next meeting to rescind it, to give you the background.
Member Shabilia.
Why would we need 2 votes to rescind this if the one we just voted to approve replaces it?
Well, because we're not asking for a first and final vote, all of our policies take 2 votes. So we actually made sure too with Linda Gagnon at the city that we were using the rescind the same way we would do a policy, and the answer was yes. So it does take 2 reads to rescind and 2 reads to approve.
Okay. So it's procedural, not
It's
anything.
completely
Okay.
procedural, and we just didn't, I mean, I guess you could amend it to do a first and final tonight. You would have to do that because it's unnecessary. That's all. We just didn't think it was necessary to push this one faster and just follow the procedure.
Okay.
No good story behind that one.
No, no. Any other discussion? Member Willett?
I mean, obviously, since I voted against the first proposal, I need a template as a backup, so I'll be voting no to rescind. So that'll be my rationale. I can correct the second one, but if you eliminate it, then I have nothing to go on. Thank you.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to rescind policy ACAB, harassment policy. This is the first read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
No.
Abstain.
A nay and an abstain. Did you say no too? Okay. So 2 nays and an abstain. Motion carries. Thank you all. May I have a motion and a second to approve the 2024-2025 PK8 handbook to include policy AC?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by the Vice Chair, seconded by Member Shabilia. Discussion.
All right. I guess it'll be me.
I've communicated quite a bit about this in the last 24 hours, so I apologize for all of the delay.
Well, this is the handbook now for the K-8. Correct. So because of the confusion with the packets and things not being color-coded and changed, I read the entire thing because that's, I feel like, kind of my job. I do think there's some stuff in here that needs to be updated. The nurse's message still references the bird flu, and we've had like 30 bad things that have happened since then. So I feel like we could maybe catch up a bit. The appendix or the table of contents is a little out of whack, the page numbers.
Oh, yeah, that won't, yeah, so the page numbers don't get corrected until I
work
accept
itself
any of the
out.
suggestions,
Right.
yeah. Thought I typed that in the memo, I'm sorry if I didn't. We don't adjust that until, so I have it in a Google Doc, right, with the strikeouts and new language. So if it gets accepted, then I go in and accept all the suggestions, that which will adjust the page numbers again, and then Martha and I will go in and correct all the page numbers before we post for the opening of school.
So I guess my first question, Superintendent, is there's a lot of language in this one and the next one we're going to talk about that should be the same as like our baseline, but there seems to be some differences. Is there a reason why we don't have like, this is our standard, here's our K-8 rider, here's our 9 through 12 rider?
Handbooks. Yeah, no, I've been intimately involved in handbooks for a long time. So there are some things that are the same, and we try to keep policies and procedures the same that pertain. The high school, however, there are some different things that are required of the high school that look very different than the grammar school. For example, the credit denial, attendance, we tried to keep the same this year, which we haven't always in the past. Devices, cell phones, we are keeping it the same this year and trying to remove any language that is vague. There's language in the handbook that also pertains to, I know, courses and grades differently than at the grammar schools that are required for accreditation purposes. So it's a little bit of a different beast. And of course, that whole last section on MIAA is not applicable to our K-8s. So in the past, it really has been done, it's been written by two different groups of people to make sure that we have everything that the high school needs and everything that the PK through 8s have. And I will share this with all of you. This is a beast of a task, and I'm the one who does it. And so I'm the one who goes in and does the PK through 8 handbook every single year since I've been assistant superintendent. I'm the one that goes in, changes it, gets feedback from people, goes back in, so I try to manage that. The high school, I do have help. Dr. Golubsky helps as well, but it is a beast. And so I recognize, Member Shabilia, and I will quote myself saying to Martha Sorois last week, and then maybe I said it a few times this weekend after I was alerted last night that you didn't have the right one, that I think the whole handbook needs to go out for a full review this coming cycle. So meaning this is something that Attorney Joyce and McAvoy do for school districts. We have done it in the past where they've done a full review. Take our 2 handbooks, make sure our policies all match, make sure the language matches, like they do that work. I am 100% going to recommend that we do that next spring to make sure that if there's things that we missed, did we miss other policies that we should rescind, because the new ones we just update and add, right? So there's things we're missing. So I will 100% tell you it's a beast, and I'll 100% tell you I want to go out next spring to send it out to do a full review of both of the handbooks to make sure we don't have any contradictory language and to make them as symbiotic as we can.
So my understanding is that MASC policy review we are doing
Yep.
will also review our handbooks.
They will. They have a very different lens, though.
Oh, okay.
They have a
We'll
different lens.
Table that for a different.
No, they just, they need to do it, but I do need, so our legal, so Matt McAvoy and Michael Joyce of McAvoy, Joyce, and Nuttall are our legal counsel who work with us on student-facing policies, actions, discipline, IEPs, 504s, all that stuff, right? They have a different lens that MASC isn't going to have necessarily on what is going to protect the school committee when we talk about civil rights, when we talk about even Title IX, like MASC is gonna give you the boilerplate language, but they're not gonna go into making sure, like, though, Michael Joyce is gonna make sure we're protected by what we're posting, what is our process, what is our training, so they just have a different lens for that. What would be ideal is if the MASC is in works, and we've updated some things, so that we know what we can give to Mike, exactly. So that over time, we're completely just in a really good place with what our policies are and what's updated, and, right, because they'll find policies that we probably need updating, or we still have posted somewhere that we need to rescind or change, but are in our handbooks appropriately. That's what I'm hoping for next spring.
All right.
So I'm going to take full responsibility for that we're looking at sort of the big language changes, each year to keep it up to date, but I do think it's time for us to do, I don't think we've done one probably in 6 or 7 years, a full review of our student handbooks.
All right, we can get to that one later then. I do want to call everyone's attention to page 40 of the K-8 handbook. Page numbers are at the bottom. Or on mine. It's the bus behavior consequence chart.
That's a good one, too.
Well, that's why it caught my attention. I can only imagine, based on the stories I hear, what kind of chaos ensues on a bus filled with a bunch
So
of
you're
little
looking
kids.
at, you're looking at the current book, correct? Not the one I gave you today, this morning?
Yes.
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 I'm trying to figure out what page it's on the one I gave you guys this morning.
It looks like this, for those of you who want.
48. Got it. Page 48 on the one I gave you guys this morning, I think. I don't know.
The one you gave me this morning doesn't have any page numbers,
Oh, okay.
so I can't find it.
It doesn't have page numbers?
No,
You're not even looking at the right thing.
this is the handbook. Yes, this is what you gave me this morning.
We delivered you a new handbook with the colors in it this morning, the one I emailed you guys last night. Yes, people got those, yes. I looked at each one myself, so.
So,
All right, the bus one is towards the end. It's after the discipline section. I'm looking at what you're looking at.
chart, it perpetuates, in my opinion, negative behavior, because the consequences are so almost non-existent. I mean, you could have 24 different reports of a level 2 offense, which are defined above, and only have warnings. So I don't know if we need to update this prior to posting printing.
I guess I'm not following you. So 4 or more reports, a student can get suspended up to 20 days on
It's
the
a
bus.
warning or up to 20-day bus suspension.
Yeah.
So my proposal was that the first report would stay the same as a warning.
Yep.
Second report would be a 1 to 3.
Take off the warning.
Take off the warnings. I mean, we've given warnings. How many warnings do we really need to be giving?
Fine with that.
But then again, I would look for input from the committee, because I have not had to deal with kids getting on a bus at the end of a day. I'm not the one who's going to have to live with the consequences of this change. So I welcome feedback into removing those warnings and making these more of a structured, tiered disciplinary schedule.
Yeah, I think the hardest part, and I'm totally okay with that, removing the warning part of that. We haven't looked at the bus behavior infractions in a while, too. But we also keep in mind this is going to be part of, and maybe the larger conversation about our bus, what we're doing next, later tonight, our bus contract conversations, because this only works if the bus driver or somebody reports the infraction, right?
Right.
And that system is a little bit broken, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I'm totally get what you're saying, remove the warning. Because the level 1s don't have that, right? There's, the warning is off of it, and it can be up to, and then possible loss, up to, right? So I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I wonder if it might be, because some of the level 2 infractions could be things like unnecessary noise, that maybe if they received a warning in the fall and then it happens again in the spring, it might not warrant necessarily a suspension, but another warning, so that kind of gives us the out to go one way or the other, depending on the circumstance.
Good point.
Yeah,
Could be far apart.
I'm in agreement with Member Shabilia, because it's like warning, and then, well, there's the cliff, oh, the 20 days is like, all of a sudden, like, you could have minor warnings, and then all of a sudden, you have the possibility of being suspended up to 20 days. And it's like, I'd rather have like a better tiered system and having notifications home, and then encouragement of the
By
bus
trimester.
drivers to follow the policies that we have. And even once in a while, pulling the tapes and monitoring those tapes. You know, again, that's vigilance too, is all of a sudden, we're pulling the tape, and if you see the tape and it's romper room on a bus, and the bus driver's not doing anything. And again, I'm not like, you know, singling out bus drivers. I think we've had good reports about, for the most part, with the bus drivers. But like, if you pull the tape once in a while, or I've mentioned to the superintendent, maybe once in a while have a bus monitor, if the problematic buses, sort of like an air marshal on a plane. But if you have someone on it, that's gonna dissipate very quickly if you have a separate adult monitoring those buses. And I've mentioned that to the superintendent, but I think that the tiered structure has to be revised. Because you get warning, and then it's like, almost like the Himalaya. Oh, yeah, 20 days, and like, there's no continuity to that. It makes no sense.
I like the fact that
So-
you had two referrals, one to Romper Room and one to the Himalaya.
Not
in the
bad,
same-
huh?
Yeah.
It's
Um,
summertime,
And
why
you
not?
shattered
You gotta spice it up.
all my childhood illusions were shattered
It's not bad,
by
right?
taking Romper Room and putting a negative context on it. Yeah.
I wonder if, I mean, and these are conversations too, that if you, let me start with the first thought, is I wonder if the committee would be amenable to this happens, but it's by trimester. So if we do, everything starts over the next trimester, clean slate, next trimester, clean slate, so at least the kids have like an opportunity. And then that way, what Dr. Golowski just said of like, if a kid gets a warning in December and then gets another warning in June, am I really gonna give them a suspension when there's so much time in between? Maybe it's by some trimester at the grammar school. This happens, and this is gonna be the consequences that build up. That, to me, might seem a little more, even with parents, doable, right? Like, as kids' development. I also want to just put it out there, if you haven't figured out, which you will, when we present the strategy plan and my goals for next year, right? Chronic absenteeism is a huge priority for us, for the state. This is where the state is going with support for school districts. We need to do it. We know it. This is also a challenge for principals, is when you start doing bus suspensions, often kids just won't come to school because they can't get to school, right? So we work with parents, but there is that. I know that is something that will come back to me from the principals, saying, if we do this, which we can, it means that if a student is suspended for 2 days from the bus automatically, they just aren't going to come to school for 2 days, and that is our reality. And so we want to balance that a little bit. I want to share that. That doesn't mean you will change what you're thinking, but I do think maybe a trimester calendar of something like this would be more reasonable for families and for kids, because
I would support a trimester for the level 2 infractions, as they're more of, I guess, a nuisance.
Yep.
Whereas the level 1
Level one.
infractions, such as smoking,
Yep.
fighting, vandalism, bullying, I mean, those are more big ticket items, and I don't think those should have a statute of limitations on them of a month and a half.
Yep.
I would be amenable to
I am too. I'm okay with that.
breaking out the level 2 infractions and giving a trimester schedule for them.
Yep, I totally understand that. those are the lesser offenses,
Yeah.
and squishing it in a little bit by trimester. If it continues and the behavior doesn't change in a shorter period of time, there are consequences that build.
And like, I get that absenteeism is the push statewide, but I don't think that we let kids bully other kids on the bus and then say the state wants to make sure you come to school, feel free to get back on the bus.
Right.
So if we have to take a hit one way to avoid another kid taking a hit another way, I'm willing to take that one.
I guess my question is, you proposed some amended, do we need to vote
Whole
on
bunches
that?
of them.
Yeah, yeah. Do we need to vote on those?
Well, so the handbook works in a whole package.
Right?
Right, so what I would be looking for is, there were 3 sort of larger pieces in the PK through 8, 2 in the high school that are equivalent. The cell phone language that was of interest to the school committee, and I put in here where we landed and gave you the information about where and how we landed there. The Chromebook language is also new and something that is long overdue, a little more structure to how we're dealing with Chromebook vandalism and damage. And so that was something that was a collective practice too from our tech department. Our administrators we had some collective conversation about that this summer. So that was a big one for the K-8. The attendance language, right? I pulled some language and statistics from Attendance Works to put in there. We are making a big push for, the way things are done really didn't change in the language. I just added language in there to just strengthen the idea of why we want kids to come to school and what happens when they don't, right? That is going to be, again, a big PR piece for us, working with families and engagement. It'll be part of a big part of our new strategy plan draft that we'll present to you at the next meeting. So that gets, right, like, so all those pieces, your approval, and this is hard sometimes to explain, and our legal counsel keeps explaining it to me, but the handbook is not a standalone policy, right? So we don't treat it as a first read, second read. There are standalone policies in the handbook that we have to treat, just like we did with AC, that actually belong or required to be in a student handbook. But your approval of the whole handbook then sets policy and procedure and practice in motion collectively. So while there is only one vote of approval for each of the handbooks, I'm certainly open to the conversation of those. For me, those are the big chunks of pieces we've taught. And the holiday theme week, I'm sorry, there were 4 for the grammar school. Right, those are the big pieces that we changed. There are some little changes in there, grammar, names, we did all that, right? That's, I don't think, the biggest concern. But those are the pieces. So again, it has to be approved sort of all or nothing, and if each piece needs conversation, then that's what we have to do tonight.
So how do we make sure your input's like this? So on the tier 1 issues, I completely agree with you, right? So how do are we capturing those?
I'm capturing those
Okay.
to do it. I mean, we're in agreement to do it. So if you vote for if we vote for the handbook, any changes you make to what I presented tonight, you need to tell me what you're approving.
So there's no need to vote on the amendment to the
That's my point, yeah. Yeah.
discipline chart for the buses.
No.
You're just getting a general head nod from the majority.
I'm getting a head nod, so I'll change it. I mean, that's what the note I'm taking. When you approve the handbook, I think we're all in agreement. This is what this conversation is for. That wasn't something I was focused on with my team this summer to change.
Right. All right, so on that unfortunate note, I have a few more.
Okay.
Sorry. Well, you gave me a packet and
That's
then I read it. My bad.
I'm glad you did.
So for me, it's page 55. It is the social networking policy. Reviewing this, I mean, there's several paragraphs in here. Paragraph 6 of it, for example, starts with if a teacher conveys school-related messages to a student parents on her private account from a social network. I think all references to teachers being allowed, encouraged, or anything from their personal social media to a student should be completely removed from this policy.
Okay, say, title the policy again that you're at, because my page numbers are different than yours.
Social networking policy?
So that's at the end too, right?
I mean, for me, it's, I don't know, late
No?
middle, I guess you could call it.
Was it after or before the last thing?
It's after after the last one. I read it pages sequentially.
Listen.
I got it. I'm learning. I did a find and replace.
So like paragraph 6, and then on the following page, you have paragraph 9. Teachers are discouraged from using their home phones, personal cell phones, personal emails, Facebook accounts to communicate with students. I don't believe they should be discouraged. It should be disallowed. We have talking points. We have
Yep.
a million other ways to communicate with students. You don't need to be jumping on your personal Facebook and dropping them a note on their personal or Twitter or X or TikTok or whatever it is. Like, we have ways to communicate, and this policy, the way it's written, is clearly a little bit older than some of the other ones, and encourages, or not necessarily encourages, some places it does, but doesn't discourage the use of personal social media.
Right. So
There's a lot, yeah.
there is a lot here, and you're right. I think it needs some updating. I don't know. I don't think these are standalone policies. That's the one thing I'm trying to check here. Because usually when there's a legal reference, that means it's a standalone policy, but I don't see it indicated as such here.
Like, and I'm open to, if someone wants to tell me that I'm being too vigilant and that this is,
No, I think that's a good point.
oh, okay, well, just inviting the devil.
Nowhere to doc,
Oh, it doesn't work because we can't hear you.
there's no way to document the communication between parent and student, teacher and families if everyone's on a different platform than talking points. And
Right.
that can get us into a lot of trouble.
That's what he's saying. That's what
Right.
you're saying, right? You're like, just do away with all of it.
I've watched Criminal Minds. I know how this goes. Like, I don't want, there's no reason for a teacher to be sending another kid a message on TikTok. It's
Right.
just-
So, hold on a second.
not
What language specifically, Dan, are you looking at? I'm sorry, Member Shabilia, are you looking at?
Paragraph 6 jumps out at me. If a teacher conveys school-related messages to students on his or her private account, that paragraph should be stricken. And then paragraph 9, teachers are discouraged from using home phone, personal cells, personal email accounts, and personal Facebook accounts to communicate with students. It should be, are not allowed. Like, don't, just straight up don't do it.
Okay.
I think it's hard to follow this because I don't even have this, like, I can't even find this policy.
Yeah, I
I
can't.
think it's really hard to follow and make amendments to something I can't even read. I have one question about this particular thing. Why are there policies for teachers in the student handbook in general?
Because some of them are, we're required to post so that parents know what those requirements are. Yeah. I know some of these sound weird because there are 2 teachers, but like, there's some language in here, you're gonna, like sexual harassment language, you're gonna see it's towards the adult, but the parents need to read what we're telling the adults as well required. So there is some of that. But I'm making notes of what you just said, Member Shamilia, because our team, I also don't believe our team would disagree with anything you're saying, so I'm striking out those sections. If I find that it's a standalone policy, I will have to bring that to you on the 27th.
Fair.
I don't believe it is, because we do indicate that in the handbook. So this is our written policy, which means we can't amend it.
Okay, so my
Right.
next one is my page 61. It's on plagiarism.
But you said number 9, hold on, number 9.
I just want to go off what you were.
Sure.
So the thing I'm confused about was when the mayor and I first stepped into office, we had a situation where a principal sent an event that was not being hosted by the school for the students' emails about a rally. And we sat here and we said, we don't think that's even appropriate without parents being notified. So that's why I'm confused about these policies, because that policy just saying unauthorized schools, why is teachers being able to use different platforms too? That whole conversation was brought up even when we did that back then, and I think the mayor, you remember when we did all that and we struck
Yeah.
a bunch of those things, like, that's why I'm confused why this still was in the handbook.
Because so the change in practice that came from that was through our system, through MPS email and to student emails.
Yeah.
The policy that was changed is that the parents should have seen it first before it went to the students, and that's what we changed.
Right, but.
It had
the-
nothing to do with platforms.
No, but what we said was, and I remember Madam Pesh even said it, that we don't even think that's appropriate through student emails. And then we went through all these different platforms saying that teachers and students, because remember this whole big conversation spilled about it, how we shouldn't have policies at all, that teachers shouldn't be communicating with students at all in all platforms, or not just the emails, without parents being notified. That's just, that, I just remember I could have been confused with what
It
we
was
were
definitely
thinking.
announcements like that, but that's the only way our teachers communicate with students is through email. Our
No,
own
no,
email.
no,
how-
what
I
I'm
don't-
saying was, and I remember Madam Pash was saying, we didn't want unauthorized school events or other things that involve curriculum, or that should be only allowed on that one platform,
Correct.
and just be through that. But then we started having that broader conversation that teachers shouldn't even be communicating without parents being notified, or principals. Now, again, that could be just a total different concept that I got from that.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm looking at this, the platforms and Facebooks and all that, what members should be like. That whole conversation that we had, that the mayor and I was part of, we thought that unless it was involving the schools, they shouldn't be communicating at all. No staff should be communicating with students without parents. It's just, I thought it was a broader conversation than that one
Did you have
criteria.
something, Member Willett?
Yeah, quick, we already have a state law that prohibits political activity on campuses. To me, because of the modern age, that would be an extension on that, would be electronic devices. Now, if we have to update the policy, reflect that, the only thing that should be communicated is through official channels, academics, that's it, nothing else. No rallies, no political agendas.
We already fixed that.
No union contracts, nothing. We went through that earlier, coming into this new group of people, right? And if we have to shore it up, but there's already a state law, you cannot do political activity on campuses.
No, it would-
And by extension, communicating that to students, to me, is violating that original state law. That's my
Well, we
opinion.
already-
The
we already
electronic
fixed it.
devices would be the same thing.
It's already
I
done.
gotta be honest here, and don't think, I'm kinda lost, because I'm having trouble with the pages, just like Member Maxwell. But I think we're kinda,
Yeah.
we're kinda painting ourselves into a corner here.
Yeah,
Right, we're talking about now, pardon me, I think we're talking about, I heard one thing,
yeah,
two things, three things,
Yeah.
right? So the two and the three are not,
yeah.
right?
I'm using what we did
Yeah,
to say, I
that was
thought,
about a specific event that
but we changed that whole policy of
we did.
communication with students. That's what I thought. I thought that changed the whole mindset of that conversation, that just keep it academics.
Yeah.
I think the simple solution to this is, let's refer the policy back to the subcommittee.
Amen.
And we'll come back with a update. That way
On this
we can
one.
clarify what you're saying
Yeah.
Yeah.
and clarify what he's saying.
That's
and we
great.
can
Yeah.
For the
bundle it all
for
up
this
pretty
one.
pretty.
For this
Yes.
one, yeah, I think that's great. That would be helpful for me too.
All right. My next one is the plagiarism. In the high school handbook, we talk about plagiarism using AI.
Right.
We don't talk about it in the K-8, and I don't think we're giving our K-8 kids enough credit because they know how to chat GBT better than probably most of the people in this room.
Amen.
So I think that those languages should be mirrored,
Which we can.
which I think a lot, and all the things I'm suggesting currently should be mirrored
Yep.
for the upper school appropriately as well. Not the upper school, the high school.
Yep.
And then the one thing I didn't notice in the handbook, and I mean, if I missed it, please point it out to me. There was no bullying section in the K-8, but there is a pretty hefty bullying section in the high school.
It's there.
Did I?
I actually saw that, I only because I,
I don't know, that's in the one that I got today, maybe not in the one that you got the other day. But the bullying is in there. It's the old one though.
I mean, even real quickly, running through the table of contents. There's nothing here on bullying. And I made note that in the high school handbook, there's an obligation to notify others.
So there's a whole section in the discipline with, oh, no, hold on. Rewind. There's a whole section in the discipline with students with disabilities on bullying and the laws. Cyberbullying, bullying, retaliation, prohibitions.
But it's under
Yeah, I don't know why it's only under that one. So,
Yeah.
no, so it says Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 370, bullying, policy, and training requirements, the Methuen Public Schools endeavors to maintain.
Falls behind the disability.
And then it has definitions, so it's its own section, cyberbullying, bullying, aggressor, retaliation, prohibitions, prevention and intervention plans, publication and notice. That's in the PK handbook.
All right, I will go back and check it. 'Cause
It's right above general policies, that general policies section.
Okay. That's all I have for the,
So plagiarism, hold on, no, I gotta capture this, hold on.
Oh,
So
sorry.
plagiarism, we'll get in both of the same language, we haven't done
Yeah,
that, but we would want it to mirror, right? That
Mirror,
language is
yeah.
really good for the high school, okay. And then the social networking policy, we'll take that whole thing, put on a separate document, and have the policy subcommittee look at that, maybe have Nancy Lopez, our Director of Technology, involved, any principals like to update that work that policy subcommittee can do for us. So when it's updated, so what will happen is it will remain as is for the handbook. That's the hard part about this, there's a process, right? So it will remain as is. Once it's updated by the policy subcommittee, we can update it and repost it on the website with the date that it was reposted. And send a notice to all the parents that it was, please read this part, it was updated and reposted by school committee. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that we won't change anything now because we're not sure what we're changing. It stays the same. We refer it to the subcommittee for policy. Once that process happens and it's brought back to the school committee, we add it to the handbook. I repost it with a new date. We've had to do that in the past when laws change in the middle of the year. Repost it with a new date, and we send a notice to all parents that this section has been revised in the handbook to please take notice and review it. Okay, just so that I understand the process too.
remember Willett? Oh, sorry, remember Maxwell, go ahead.
Okay, so to my understanding, we're voting as a whole on the whole student handbook.
Yep.
Correct? Okay, so I think just based off of the confusion alone, it should be a no. I mean, that's my vote, because the handbook you gave me to review the other day is different from the handbook that I was given today. So I didn't even come across the things that Dan pointed out. However, I just want to point out a few things in the one that I did review. The holidays, I wanted to touch upon because at one point it does say that MPS cannot celebrate religious holidays, but we can teach our students about important religious holidays and how they're celebrated. I don't think that we can say that we can't celebrate religious holidays, as long as they're not infracting on constitutional issues. We can teach our students about holidays. The celebration is kind of up to us. It doesn't really matter if it's a religious holiday or not, just celebrations in general. So that would be my first comment on that. I don't think that we, you know, in one breath you say MPS can't recognize religious holidays, and in the next breath we're giving Good Friday off. So we are acknowledging religious holidays. The second piece of it that I wanted to touch upon is the dress code policy. I think the dress code policy needs to be updated because in one of the policies, it says that students must wear shirts covering the torso, and I'm sure every single one of us has seen that that's just not happening anymore. To buy full-length shirts is not in style, it's not, I understand we don't want kids in sports bras, but I don't see the harm in them showing some of their bellies, if you will. So to say from the top of the chest down to the waist and not showing your midriff and backside, I think that, I'm not sure what's inappropriate about showing your belly. So I'd like that changed. And the cell phone policy, I'm just a hard no on the whole policy that we're proposing, because you are against punishing the behaviors of the current cell phone infractions. So to put together a whole new policy and say, kids, you have to put your cell phones in this is their personal property. You have to put it in there when none of them have been in trouble for actually using their cell phones. I also am against saying that you can't bring cell phones to school dances or school whatever. If kids have do not take my picture forms on record, sure, I understand the problem. But if somebody's like, well, I don't want Bobby taking my picture because Bobby might post it later and I don't like Bobby, so I don't want Bobby having that's not my problem. I'm sorry. So that's the second thing. I think that the whole handbook in itself is wordy. I don't think we need to understand why attendance matters. I don't think that that's important to parents or anybody. I understand that attendance does matter, but to put it in our handbook is wordy and no one's going to read the handbook. The bullying policy needs to be updated because the bullying subcommittee did update the policy. I don't know why it's not showing there.
I don't believe it was brought to the school committee
Okay,
for process, so it hasn't been updated formally by the whole committee.
okay. The attendance during suspension, I know that was brought up a couple times here, meaning if kids are suspended because of something on the bus and now they can't take the bus and they can't get to school, again, that's not our problem. I think that if kids get suspended, it's unexcused. You're suspended because you had a bad behavior and you cannot be in school. And if the bus can't get you to school because you're not responsible enough to take you, then your parents get involved and your parents have to drive you. And if it's an inconvenience for your parents, then they're gonna get in trouble at home. You know, I think that we're taking away discipline and that's why we're having so many issues. And then my last thing was just the lockers. It says that they can only go before homeroom, before lunch and after lunch. But yet backpacks are not allowed to be carried throughout the day. So these kids now have to carry all of their stuff, all of their belongings with them. And I know kids are on their computers, and we have computers now, but I'm also against computers. I think we should bring back writing and books. So, but that's a different topic. Those are just the few updates that I would like to see updated in the policy, because I do think that they're discriminating against some people, especially the dress code policy. I think that the dress code policy, for one, if you are allowing your sports teams to have tank tops and short dresses and short skirts or short skirts, then you can't tell your students when they're wearing the same thing that they can't be wearing those things. When the school, you know, I'm not gonna say the cheerleaders because I'll use the cheerleaders because I just use them as an example. Their shorts and their shirts and whatever, those are short and they're allowed to wear them because they're representing the school, but being a part of the school, you're not allowed to wear certain things. I have a hard time with that, so that's all. Those were my only points.
Vice Chair?
So I have a couple of things. The locker issue, the other thing that I have a problem with the lockers is that it says no non-school items can be stored in the locker. But if you have something that you've brought from home to go someplace after school,
are you gonna carry it around with you all day? It doesn't really make sense that you can't have things, personal items in your locker, especially at that age. So, that's a little bit troublesome for me. The attendance policy has typos in it, and some of the sentences don't read well. So if you could just go back over it and make sure that it reads correctly, that would be great.
Yep.
If you could do a global search for 2 periods in a row, that would be great too, because I see that a lot in there. That would be fabulous. And for the attendance policy, I have an issue that's both at the elementary school, but also at the high school, so it's the same issue. And especially at the high school, because it leads to credit denial. If a student is sent home by the nurse, by the guidance counselors, it is considered unexcused. And especially at the high school, that causes credit denial when you have a student, let's say hypothetically, get sent home by guidance, say 6 or 7 times in a trimester, or I mean a term. Those kids are getting credit denial because of that. And it's catching kids that you're not trying to catch. And I think in the policy, it needs to say if the student is sent home by the nurse or by guidance for a valid reason, that needs to be an excused absence in the system so that those kids aren't getting caught. So that's my big issue with the attendance policy. And that's all I have. Thanks.
And we'll let,
So I have a concern about the dress code policy, and I've really bantered about this. You already have like clothing and jewelry with language or images invoking hate speech, profanity, or pornography. So that covers that basis. And there's a specific, with civil rights, a specific definition of hate speech. So then you go into images or language that creates a hostile or intimidating environment based on any protected class. Well, most of the students are, in some fashion, might be a protected class. And what is the definition of intimidating? So if I wear a Trump shirt at the next meeting, is that intimidating to somebody? If someone wears a Harris shirt, is that intimidating to somebody? It's a very nebulous language. And I think when you say hate speech, and you can look it up with civil rights, there's a specific definition of hate speech. But like, if we're intimidated, is that now something we're going to be going after the kids? Like if I don't like certain music, or if I'm triggered by a certain event or a public figure, that, I don't like that language at all. So that would be my recommendation, is to remove that language. You already have the other language about hate speech. And again, a swastika is hate speech. You know, that's a straightforward thing. But intimidating, what is that? That's very nebulous. So I would rather have that protected class, I would rather have that removed. And then the other thing was, we were bantering back and forth about whether it be discretion with the cell phone policy or mandatory. My interpretation is, once they go into that classroom, it's either going to be the bin or the plastic sleeves, and that's it during the instruction time. So the teachers will know, once we approve this
Yep.
package, it's going to be a mandatory thing. It's not going to be at the discretion of the
Correct.
teachers.
We changed the language to will. That was feedback that we got, and our team also agreed when we met for our half-day to go over some of these
And that was
pieces.
reflected with the teachers, is that we want to have the power as a mandatory vehicle
Yep.
to take during instruction time. And I think there's a balance being achieved.
But we can't take them. Right, we're asking kids to put them in it,
Yeah, but
right? And
there's
there's
going to be a punitive, if they don't do it,
Correct.
then there is,
Right.
so, I
Then we
mean,
have a system.
not confiscation, let's say.
correct. And we
But there's going to be
are ready
in
for it.
a
We
bin
purchased
or plastic. yeah.
clear pockets. We've done everything
Yeah.
we needed to do in the district to prepare for this, if it is approved, yes, to
I
support
think
our
it's important
teachers.
on that point, too, to distinguish that if the student doesn't put their phone into the holder, but it remains unseen in a way throughout the period, nothing comes of that. It's if they're using it inappropriately during instructional time and it also had chosen not to put it in there, that's where the issue lies.
Right. It's what do you do when you're not already abiding by keeping it out of instructional time?
So then it becomes discretion, because like, how are you gonna force that? One is in the pocket, like if everybody was, okay, here's the bin, put your cell phones in, we're gonna have examination, academics, instruction time, and at the end of the class, take your phone back and then you proceed to the next class.
Yep.
Or it's gonna be a discretion, oh, it's in your pocket, but it's not in your pocket now, put it in your pocket, and then it goes back to square one. That's,
No, so our whole point in the language was that we were providing the opportunity for teachers, right? This is all about not interrupting instructional time and supporting our students and our staff without using cell phones. There's no reason a student needs to use their cell phone during instructional time in that classroom. So if we provide, students will do it, but I can't have teachers pat down kids for cell phones. So if I don't see it, and it doesn't become, the purpose of this is for it not to become a problem during instruction. So whatever that student does, if it's not a problem during instruction, we've solved our problem. So if half the class puts it in the pocket and half the class doesn't, and there's not one interruption in the class, we have solved our problem. And that, I hope I can come back and tell you, this has solved our problem, right? We don't have the interruptions we've had. Our teachers feel supported. We have a system in place when the interruption does happen, right? When they've had the opportunity to put it in the pouch, or they know that they can't take it out during the, it's not put it away, put it away, put it away, right? We're not doing that nonsense anymore, right? So our whole purpose, and I shared all those articles with you on purpose, this is not a situation I'm trying to make up here in Methuen. This is a national concern, right? There's a national, the Surgeon General said that these social media platforms and cell phones are addictions for our kids. They don't belong in classrooms during instructional time, and we're trying to weigh this. So we're not asking, and I don't think our team agrees, right? Those pouches, some of those other options are going to be challenging for us, and we're not ready for that. That's not what we're asking of you or us or of our teams or kids, right? They're still going to have them during the school day. When they walk out of the class, they take them to the next class and do the same thing. They'll have them on their person at lunch. We don't want to see them, right? It causes, I've shared this with you. It's going to be in the will of the committee to make this decision, but I can't tell you how much cell phones interrupt our school day. And yes, there are good kids who don't interrupt the day, but there are many, many kids who do. And having one teacher and one administrator trying to enforce these rules of put your cell phones away, it's just, we're not making gains, right? And it's our instructional time is getting interrupted. And so I think this is a really appropriate approach to start with, and to see if this actually works. And we are putting all the systems in place to support the teachers, have everything ready, roll this out in the right manner on the opening day. I hope the school committee supports this. Our teachers need the support. Our kids do not need to be on cell phones during their class time. They don't need to be receiving texts. They don't need to be on social media. It is causing, they don't need them in the bathrooms when they leave class to go to the bathroom. That's when things aren't monitored by adults, which I can never get to do. So, I'm hoping it curbs some of that behavior as well, and some of the discipline that comes with that kind of cyber bullying and cyber harassment that has been happening.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask to move along from the cell phone policy. We just voted on this. There's no reason for us to be rediscussing the cell phone policy that we voted on not even 6 weeks ago. We tabled it?
Yeah, we tabled it.
Tabled it so I could reword it for tonight, to reflect what you guys were asking me, which I did reflect in the language here.
And no offense, Mr. Mayor, I think the two people that worked and work in the profession, we kind of have something to say about it. So I don't want to move along it. I kind of want to say my piece when it comes to the cell phones, if that's okay.
3 minutes or less, go ahead.
I only need 3 minutes. Because at the end of the day, we're so worried about test scores. But the reason why our test scores are, we're improving, but I guarantee you, those students that are not testing well, I guess if we ban the cell phones in the classroom, our test scores would go up. I think so. That because as a teacher, well, where I work, we have a no cell phone policy. It works, it's enforced. Nobody's crying that they have their cell phones in their pocket, their bags, and they go to the class and they're not screaming out like, I want my cell phone. It is perfectly fine. I just think we're so focused on like they need their cell phones, when one of the reasons why parents were trying to get us back into the schools during COVID was that their kids are socially acting with each other face to face. But if you look in schools, like I've gone to the high school, and the kids are locked in on their cell phones and not even talking to each other. By having and we're not saying when they're going through the hallway at the high school, they can't pull out their cell phone unless that's, but they can. But when they're in the classroom where the teacher is teaching them and their job is to write down notes, okay, do their work, and then go and leave, no, there's no need for a cell phone in the classroom. So I like the policy. It's not going to hurt them. And if they're kids with 504s, IEPs, that's in their accommodations, and by law, we have to follow those, so they are a separate category. We're talking to students that are literally just going there into the classroom, and they're just not paying attention. And they're playing, and they're not doing anything academic on the cell phone. If your kids are telling you that, Mom, I'm looking up on Google what I'm supposed to be doing in class, they're lying to you. That's a fact. They have their Chromebooks. They could do the same thing on their Chromebooks. And so, because cell phones, they're not looking it up. They're texting their friends on their phones. They're looking on TikTok. They're looking on Instagram. They're going in the bathroom and doing Snapchat. Okay? That's what exactly they're doing on their cell phones. That's it.
So I just want to kind of counsel us all at one, so kudos to you. I don't know how the hell you even follow this. I mean, and my
I'll watch
apologies
the
for
recording a few
language,
more
but,
times.
I mean, so we're all over the place as a committee.
A little bit.
I mean, we are all over the place. And I'm going to caution, so, and I'm going to pick you said some things that I don't agree with, right? That the use of cell phone leads to declining test scores. There's no proof of that. None whatsoever, right? I would far rather see us focus on parental involvement, right? And how many times they go to Insight rather than the cell phone. I think, to Member Shabilia's point, we discussed the cell phone policy. We tabled it so that we could get through tonight, and now we are waffling all over the place. So I am happy to take the committee where we want to go. I think, to me, and I'm going to give you my opinion, to me, there is nothing wrong with asking a student to put a cell phone in a sleeve during class, right? During instructional time, there is no need for them to have it. Other than that, my view is that is not our purview. If a parent gives a child a cell phone, right, we're in, everything we pointed out as examples. I could show you examples every damn day, during city council meetings, during meetings, let's not restrict this to children, to kids in high school or kids in, K through 8. This is a rampant issue nationwide, period, right? You got adults sitting at a table at dinner, they're not even talking to each other, they're on their cell phones. So this is a prevalent issue. I think we've got to focus on what is it that the administration wants? What are they asking? And to me, I thought that was quality instruction time is what I heard. This is getting in the way of instruction time. So as much as I'm all for teaching our students about proper use of cell phones, if you remember, I voted no originally when this came up. I listened to you and I said, okay, I don't want a teacher having to fight with a student because the student's is dragging the whole class back if he or she is using a cell phone. So I think we've got, kind of an alternative on the table. I just want to caution that we put out 40 different opinions here, and I don't even know how to tell, I don't know what we're telling you to do. and my apologies for that.
Mayor, can I just comment on
I'm
what
just gonna
you
wait for
just
you guys
said?
to vote.
I do agree with the instructional piece. I am 100% on board with that. My only problem is that it's extended past instructional time.
And I support you on that.
Yeah,
I'm
I
with
mean,
you.
I don't think we should be telling kids they can't bring their phones to dances or the trunk or treat or,
Yeah.
you know, that's not our business.
Right.
If it's so the point behind that is if it's a school-sponsored event.
But it's
so-
not imposing on their instruction.
It isn't, but it's still causing behavioral issues that the school has to deal with for behavioral consequences. So kids are posting pictures of kids at dances inappropriately that lead to them in offices in the school with cyberbullying, bullying, harassment, inappropriate things being said, and we have to deal with it. So that's all we're trying to curb. That's what my team is saying. There's so many things that land in the school's lap that I don't know how else to say it publicly. I don't know how else to say it to all the committees I've worked with. There is so much time that our administrators and teachers spend dealing with issues because of cell phones. All we are asking the committee is to help support us in curbing the use of cell phones during the school so that we don't have instructional time disrupted or additional discipline behaviors happening when kids are videotaping each other that don't want to be videotaped. It is a problem. It is a significant problem, and we're asking for the support to try to curb that. And again, in a way that I think is reasonable to start this process, to see if this works and helps us curb that problem. So are we asking kids to put cell phones into baskets in the cafeteria? We're not. Do I want to see cell phones out and kids taking pictures and recording each other? I do not. That is not okay for us to do that. It's infringing on, our kids are not 18, they are not adults, and it will always land in the school's lap, always. So I hear what you're saying, and it's the parents' problem, it's not our problem. It is our problem, because we're the ones who are absolutely 100% taking care of all of those. The first person a parent is gonna call if there's a problem on a cell phone, a text, a Snapchat that the kid gets, is the school, 100% of the time. And so that's all we're trying to do here, is get support to be able to curb that behavior. There is work to be done. This is not perfect. I certainly wouldn't say this is perfect. I don't know how this is gonna go. This will be normal for some, because some people have used those pockets in the past and the kids won't have any issue with it, because it's been used optionally anyway. And it's gonna be very new for some, to not have earbuds in, to not have headphones around their neck. There are going to be some things that are gonna be more strict. And we're asking for that support so the teachers have something to hold on to and our admin have something to hold on to. That's where I'm coming from. And again, it's at the will of the committee. I don't know how else and how much more I could express this to the group about what our team and what our staff deals with.
I just have one more question, the follow-up question. If we are voting on the handbook itself as a whole, and we have to vote yes or no, and this cell phone policy has been tabled and we haven't even voted on the cell phone policy, how can we approve the whole handbook?
It's not so the only things that the school committee has to vote on singularly are standalone policies. The cell phone policy is not a standalone required policy.
But we can't vote yes on a policy that isn't, that's not a policy. It's not a policy yet because we've tabled the conversation, and now it's in the handbook as a policy.
You tabled the conversation with me so that I could rewrite the language to put in the handbook, of which I told you I would bring back tonight. That's what I said when we had the conversation, and I watched it 3 times to make sure I got everybody's comments when we talked about it with the admin team. So the conversation, I think, was tabled for me to bring it back to the committee during this time with the feedback that I got. I needed that time because you guys were all telling me some different things, some different ideas. That's how I understood it. That's how I understood it when I watched it.
And tonight, how? Yeah, Member Willett?
Yeah, and again, all I was asking for was like points of clarification. At the prior meeting, I said, the catalyst is always gonna be the teachers. And we made sure, we surveyed the teachers. And again, there was a group that said make it discretionary versus make it mandatory.
Right.
And I think we're moving in a direction of making it mandatory.
Right.
All right, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that, because we will have to study this anyways.
Correct.
We're gonna have a full school year to see the advantages or disadvantages of it, because it is a seismic change. It is a strong enforcement policy, and we'll have to study it and bring it back to the school committee. But if we just, again, waffle back and forth, we're not moving the train down the road. And again, the mandatory nature was emanating from the teachers themselves. That's correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's all I needed to know on that. All it was just points of clarification, the debate between mandatory versus discretionary. We're moving towards mandatory. We're gonna have a full school year to study it. We're gonna survey the teachers, we're gonna get feedback, and if we have to revise it, then that's it. But at least do something. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Member Donovan, did you have them?
There was an article in the New York Times yesterday that used the word nomophobia. It's, I guess, a new term describing an obsession that kids have, and I think we now have, with whether or not to have a cell phone. It was a great article in the Times. But I need to say this. Anything that is a distraction or a disruption to learning, I think we need to support our teachers. This is, everything Dr. Kwong said, I lived it, is true. Everything. And I think we can support the teachers by adopting this because it creates norms. What are the expectations for a community? A community could be 5th graders or 8th graders. Everyone has the same responsibilities and rights. And I get it. There's some kids who follow the rules all the time. However, it doesn't mean they have more rights than others. Everyone has a responsibility to be part of a community where you can learn without being distracted. And by having those phones put somewhere, we're telling the teachers, our biggest concern is that you get to teach and kids get to learn. And I think, as you said so eloquently, like the big debate last time was may or will. And now we're putting a lot of responsibility on the teachers now. Everyone's going to own it. So I look forward to see where we are 6 months from now. Okay? And I say, let's
Yeah.
vote.
So I guess the only thing I'd say, finishing that up, is I fully agree with you. I don't want anything to get in the way of instruction.
Is there a butt coming?
There's a but.
I knew it.
Yeah, there's a but. Well, because I'm all about teaching people to be responsible adults too, right? So I don't know how you can say you can't have your cell phone at a dance. Doesn't mean that they won't do something that's wrong that needs to be addressed or disciplined. Are you going to do it at high school football games every Friday? Good luck. You'll be walking the whole, because everybody's got their cell phones out. They're taking pictures of what's on the field. They're taking pictures. And maybe I'm getting too old. Maybe I don't want to write policies that we can't enforce, right? I 1,000% support that the phone shouldn't even come out in class. Should not come out, right? Whether we choose to mandatory use the sleeve or whatever is whether to me, right? It's the other events. It's the outside the instructional window, if you will, the way I look at it.
And
Right.
and we shouldn't be doing this back and forth.
Yeah.
I just want to say, but those, and I'm thinking
Yeah.
K to 8, those pictures at the dancers, they do disrupt learning.
Oh, absolutely.
Because on Monday,
Yeah,
everyone's in the principal's office,
Yeah.
including the police, because someone took some photos.
Yeah.
Or someone took a phone,
Yeah.
or whatever. So this meeting, I got to tell you, I think of that phrase, soup sandwich. That's where we are right
We do I specifically use the example of, obviously, we're not talking about a football game, because I can't do that, right? But if I'm supervising a school dance, and it's the staff that's volunteering and the administrators running it, there is going to be some rules that kids have to follow. That's kind of how the handbook is, right? Like, if we go on a field trip out of the state, kids have to follow the rules in the handbook, right? That's what we live by while we're sponsoring these things. So there are, that discretion is all I was saying. And a PTO event is not necessarily a school-sponsored event. So I would never track that at a fall festival on a Saturday or a trunk or treat. That, I did put that in here, there's a little discretion there that has to be used, because there are school events that, like dances, that are absolutely with no parents around, right? So there's no, it's not an ice cream social or anything like that. There's no parents supervising the kids, it's us, that need a little more, we need some leverage there. But that was where I was trying to go with that piece. And it's clearly, we can't do that at all school events, but the nature of the event is what I was trying to differentiate.
We got a fill on the topic?
I stopped taking notes.
Well,
and
we're
now
only
I'm-
voting
now
on
I'm
the
in
handbook,
trouble.
right? So we're not voting on this policy.
So that was my question.
Thank you.
We are, because this is not a standalone policy, correct? How would we go about making something a standalone policy? Is there a established process for that? Should the committee choose to go that way?
Yeah, so it would be working with MASC, and actually the sections under MASC that have sections, to see if there is a section that matches. That's what we always do. So there's always, like, you know how they're always alphabetized? Those alphabets actually mean something in the MAS world. It's the topic of the policy that says it starts with the letter A, or the letter K, or the letter M.
Right.
So working with MASC, we can decide, like, is there a place where a cell phone policy for students fits? I'm not sure there's going to be one, because this is more of a student-directed, like, I don't know the answer. I mean, that's the answer,
And
is we have
that's
to
the
work with
answer. I'm
MASC.
okay with not knowing.
Yeah,
We
we have
can
to work
figure
with
it out.
MASC to see where it would fit, and if it fits, and if other districts have it as a standalone policy. Like, is it a standalone policy, and then it's a standalone policy?
So how will we monitor if a staff member or a teacher takes a picture and that child doesn't like that picture?
That comes to our attention when the parent calls us and says, a teacher took a picture of my child, then we deal with the personnel matter behind that with the staff
Do
member.
we have a cell phone policy for
It's definitely
employees?
happened. It's a personnel procedure that I have to follow when there's discipline for personnel. That is definitely procedural and legal.
Okay. Yeah, so is there a policy for teacher cell phone use as well? I mean, I know it was said that, school dances, this is just an example. I mean, like everyone else has said, I am 100% on board for no cell phones in the classroom. 100%, I agree with that. The problem I'm having is the dance portion and the outside events. That's a huge issue for me, and I understand where you're coming from, I really, really do. But, when there was an incident where cell phones were being used at dances and we were told we couldn't bring our cell phones, the alternative was, well, the kids can't take their cell phones in to take pictures, but I'll have a staff member take pictures. So what's the difference? If the staff member's gonna share the pictures on a drive with all of the students who attended the dance, now they're all getting those pictures anyway. So,
I think I would hope that I would have more trust in the staff member taking pictures of the students appropriately, is what I would hope, than 12-year-olds taking pictures, right? And having 100 cell phones out than one, but I understand your point.
It's moved a long time.
Yeah.
Anything else that hasn't been covered? I gotta go back to my notes because I lost my,
Just again, just as a point of reference,
Yeah.
if you look at the Lowell policy, it's
Yeah.
a very draconian policy. So I think we're trying to compromise
Yeah.
on this. We're not doing the Lawrence policy,
Yeah.
we're not doing the Lowell policy, we're compromising.
Yep.
So if anybody, I can give them any time the Lowell policy, it's very draconian.
I gotta be honest with you, quite frankly, I don't care what Lowell's policy is. I only care about Methuen's policy, and I don't mean that offensive to you. This is an issue, we talked about it, it took a long time. There's disagreement, right? There's disagreement, but it's respectful. So, let's leave it on the table, let's leave the policy in, we'll move forward. I'm gonna strongly suggest we revisit this sometime, because it's a topic that everybody's passionate about,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Okay,
I have one question though about the edit or no edit of the dress code policy. Can we change the wording on it a little bit? I mean, to,
Conversation to the school committee.
Yeah,
I wouldn't advise changing it, but if, again, it's at the will of the committee. If you want to revise the dress code, it would have to be the will of the committee.
it's just, I mean, I don't have to talk about it. It's just a problem. It's a real problem when we're shaming girls for what they're wearing because their shirt is 3 inches above their jeans. I think, you know, and not all kids are held at the same standard. You know, where girls are developed in high school, they are not being reprimanded for the clothes that they're wearing, and whereas elementary school kids are. And again, it's just the style. Like, it's hard to buy kids clothes when they don't sell them like that. So I just wanted to ask if maybe we could change the dress code policy a little bit.
Any
What
feedback
line
from-
specifically?
The part that says, it,
Oh, number 2, I see it.
something about midriff and.
Yep, the first bullet, number 2.
Yeah, what page is that? I'm sorry.
Well, we don't have the same page numbers, I don't think.
I do on the old one.
Well, I'm on the one that has the suggested edit, so mine's 42, but I guarantee that's not yours.
We're on 4.
It says students must wear, and the bullet says shirt, covering the torso, top of chest down to waist, midriff, and backside.
Yes, so I would just,
So open for conversation with other committee members if you want that amended.
So that is a standalone policy, correct?
Nope.
no. So I would just take out, it says covering the torso, I would just take out top of chest down to waist, midriff, and backside. Like, yes, torso can be here, it doesn't have to be touching your jeans, because when I raise my hands right now, you can see my belly. That's all.
Do you want the parentheses removed?
The parentheses, yeah. It just says, like, up above, it says basic principle, clothes must be worn in such a way that genitals, buttocks, breasts, and nipples are fully covered. And then underneath, it says students must wear shirt covering the, like, obviously they have to wear a shirt, you know, so maybe just put shirt.
Keep in mind, I would just caution and keep in mind, we're not just talking, this is not gender specific. Right, none of this dress code is gender specific, so you're talking about shirt, you're not just talking about females and crop tops.
Boys' bellies are okay too.
I'm just saying,
Until you get to my stage of the game.
kids who will take this. Is it at the will of the committee that
I gotta be honest
strike
with you.
that?
So, no, I'm gonna say something here. So, while I am 100% in lockstep with you on the telephone, I'm not here. And I'm not here because, forget school. I learned through 40 years of private sector employment, you gotta, dress code has to be locked down. Locked down. It has to be specific. If there's wiggle room, what happens is those who would challenge the system, they find the wiggle, right? And you spend, we don't want teachers spending their time on cell phones. The dress code is kind of tough.
I hear that, and I respect that.
Yeah.
I just think that a shirt
Yeah.
not being long enough, and it's at the principal's or the teacher's discretion, and then the teacher or the principal is calling children out, saying, you should be ashamed of yourself for wearing that, while other schools are allowed to dress how they please. I think that that's, you know, we're talking about holidays infringing on people's rights. This is infringing on people's rights. It's their clothes. They want to wear what they're wearing.
Just so, oh, wait.
No, she's coming now.
So I think also, one, based off of your concern, is how administrators are approaching it, too, because I have heard that as well. And so I really don't think it's the policy, it's the way we're enforcing it. And instead of calling a student out in front of everybody, you take that individual boy or girl into the office and say, listen, like, you can't do that. You can't wear this. Or call a parent and say, hey, can you bring a change of clothes for her or him? Because I understand, in my school, we have that procedure. Like, hey, if you feel like a student is not appropriate, you need to call the office. We'll call the student down and then we proceed. Like, we don't, I get it. I think it's the enforcement that we need to fix too as well.
Madam Vice Chair?
So I don't have as much problem with the policy and having the shirts go to the waist. I do have a problem with the wording of how the school can replace the clothing or have the student wear other clothing. I think it needs to be seasonally appropriate, because I've heard too many stories about girls being told they have to wear sweatshirts in 90-degree weather. And so I feel like seasonally appropriate alternative would be nice. But I personally don't have a problem with having kids wearing clothes to their waist and having their bodies covered. I really have no problem with that. So I'm happy with the policy.
It's feeling
Okay, so
soupy
where are we?
again. Member Donovan, it's feeling soupy again.
Yeah, swimsuit. Go ahead.
I don't know where we are, but I just have a couple of very specific questions. May I? Just real quick. It'll be like yes or no. When I
Ask
looked-
away.
When I looked at the attendance,
Oh, we're moving off of the,
okay, are we moving on to the dress code?
Please, God.
I don't know.
We're done. Well,
I'm not
We're
sure.
never really going to be done with dress codes, ever. But the attendance,
Okay.
I may have missed it, but is there any reference to a student who's out for no good reason? And there probably is a good reason, but a student who does not come to school consistently, misses a whole chunk of time. Is there any reference to potential retention in there?
Yeah.
There is, and I missed it.
Yeah, it's in the beginning section under promotion and retention,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, that's where I
It's in the
saw it,
promotion
and
section.
I couldn't find it.
Yep.
Okay, great. There's that. And
It's the days missed, and then it's a
Yeah.
principal teacher decision, yeah.
Okay,
We
great.
changed that a few years ago, too.
Yeah, okay, but it's not in the
Attendance.
attendance part. Okay, that's where I got confused. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
That was easy, give me more like that.
I know. And the Chromebook, dealing with the Chromebook damage.
Yeah, you like that one?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
what if the parent, I know, that's the hard part, getting the money. So if the parent can't pay, what happens?
I think
For sure?
our team has worked diligently with
Okay.
families at this point, so I don't think that is the
It's not an
major
issue?
concern.
Okay. And the only thing I worry
I think it
about,
needs to be reported as such, that parents have to understand the replacement cost if
Right.
it's intentional damage, which we're seeing more of.
okay. And I wonder, this is more of asking for some input in one of the, when there is Chromebook damage and the child loses Chromebook access for a couple of weeks, that means the teacher's trying to come back with some old-timey
Correct.
paper and pen.
It's going to print everything.
Yeah, that's going to be,
I mean, we're doing that now.
I know, I just
mean, there
want
are
to acknowledge that,
consequences.
because that can really change the direction of the instruction. But
Right.
I don't know how to get around that.
But it is a district-wide, yeah, it's a
Right.
really tough one, and we
Yeah.
need to be a little stronger on this as well, especially since we're going to be buying the insurance, which we shared during the budget
Yeah.
season, right? So there's accidental insurance that the process will go faster when those
Mm-hmm.
Chromebooks do break, but it has to be reported that we may get those fixed and it's intentional, and then there are consequences that will, right? We'll get it fixed, but if it's intentional, there has to be consequences that go with that, so the behavior changes. That's what our hope is.
Gotcha. And that is all
They do
I
have them for 4 years. It's their Chromebook. And right now, we don't have, there is no, as you guys are aware, this financial season, there's no additional grant funds, ESSER money coming. There's nothing that gives me additional funds to keep buying and replenishing Chromebooks. That time is now done. Like, we've had that opportunity for the past few years to be able to replenish and make sure that we have loaners and everything else, but we don't have that. That's done. So there's also that we need to teach the kids to take better care of these school-issued devices, which you don't see this in the high school because it is not an issue in the high school, so we're not making it one. With the iPads, it's just a completely different situation at the high school. The kids do not intentionally damage those iPads like they do the Chromebooks.
So it seems like just a lifetime ago, but there is a motion on the floor to approve the 2024-2025 PK through 8 handbook. And a lot of the feedback has been good. I get caught up in the, what's mandatory versus what's, what's the word for the policies?
Discretionary?
Thank you. Discretionary. So I don't know, is there more that the committee would like to discuss about the PK through 8 handbook? I will tell you that the chair has certainly heard his fair share, and he thinks it's time to move on. So, can we bring it to a vote? Okay, and you can vote no. I respect that. So, the motion was to approve the 2024-2025 PK through 8 handbook to include policy AC. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
No.
Thank you. And the ayes carry. For the record, I was a nay as well.
Can
I have a motion and a second.
I'm so sorry, Mayor. May I just have one clarifying moment?
Yeah, yeah.
So the approval was with the agreement that the social networking policy stays, will be removed and sent to the policy subcommittee, correct?
Yes.
Stays as is in the handbook until the policy subcommittee can look at it and revise it, and then we'll put it in when that time happens, correct?
Right.
Sure.
And then the plagiarism, is everybody in agreement that that language goes in both? Because that would be, those are the two things I wrote that seemed pretty concrete to me, that everybody seemed agreeable with without much consternation.
And then the bus infractions.
The bus, I already changed that, yes. So the bus infraction, I already changed as well, to take off the warning and have it be by trimester level 2, not level 1.
And I know it's gonna be a losing battle, but the intimidating language of attire, just for the record, I don't think it's constitutional, but that's just my opinion.
That wasn't something we unilaterally changed, though. I don't think that was, okay.
No.
Understood.
Yep.
So I think I've captured the 3 things that go with the approval at this point that we are changing. Okay.
Do it again.
Okay. Very, very tepidly, I say. May I have a motion and a second to approve the 2024-2025 9 to 12 handbook?
So moved.
Policy AC.
Second.
Thank you, Member
Second.
Shabilia. Seconded by the Vice Chair. Discussion. Please go.
I think we
Madam
discussed
Vice Chair?
them both.
What'd you say?
So, we did.
This
Right.
one should be quick.
So this should be quick. So I'm going to end up being a hard no on this if the credit denial catches kids who are being sent home through guidance or through the nurse as unexcused absences. And so if that is not changed, I am a hard no on this handbook.
Is he still behind me? Mr. Correct, would you mind joining us for a moment? Nothing like pulling the, somebody whispered in my ear who was sitting behind me, so this may be helpful. So, this isn't the formal introduction that I wanted to give, but we'll give it now. So this is Tony Correct. This is the interim supervising principal at Methuen High School, who was the associate principal for the past 2 years? Three. And was in Haverhill High School as assistant principal previous, and then was at Methuen as a coach and a teacher previous to that. So we welcome him. He hit the ground running all summer. But this may be a question, since he's sitting behind me and can join us for this. So Member Keegan's, I don't know if that's a deal breaker or not. I'm not sure how the high school handles that piece. That's very specific, and if that is something that should be excused or, how we want to do that. We share.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll just share that for us, it's trying to find a balance, right? In the eyes of the state, it doesn't matter whether the absence is excused or unexcused. If a student is not in school and they exceed the 18 absences, they are considered chronically absent. Now, with that said, we are trying to protect them from our credit denial policy as well. So, I mean, if you look at the handbook, a few bullets down, there is a bullet in there that gives us some autonomy to take situations on a case-by-case basis, and it specifically says, I shouldn't say it specifically says it, I'm not exactly sure what it
I'm trying
what it
finding it.
specifically says, but it just says, at the discretion of an associate principal or the principal, that we have the ability to excuse absences as needed. So I know that there have been circumstances where I personally, as an associate principal, have, tried to take into consideration dismissals, for example, by a school counselor because the student was in crisis. We take that, and obviously that, for us, that's an appropriate reason to have the student be excused from school, knowing that, in the eyes of the state, that's not going to change anything. But then, for us, we could obviously put in all the different reasons why we might make the decision to excuse in that moment. But for the purpose of, not having a list where we then end up missing something, we kind of keep it general like that.
Well, my concern is that if the school is making the decision that a student is either unsafe to be in school or too sick to be in school, that it should be an excused absence as far as credit denial goes. And so if there's school personnel making the decision that the student shouldn't be there, and it's not just a parent coming in and dismissing the child, it shouldn't be treated the same way. And it shouldn't be, parents shouldn't have to be worrying about credit denial for their kids when their kids are being sent home by the guidance counselor because they're in crisis, or by the nurse because they're sick. So and what ends up happening is, the end of the day, you end up with lots and lots of absences because these students that happen to have this issue tend to happen multiple times. And so these are the kids that are getting caught in this net of credit denial for no reason, and it's causing lots of extra stress for no reason. So in my opinion, if the school is making the judgment that the kid couldn't be in school, it should be counted as an excused absence as far as credit denial. I understand that the state doesn't look at it any different, and it doesn't matter to me that way. It has to do with the credit denial policy that we have, that those students, if the school is making the determination that the student shouldn't be in school, then those students it should be counted as an excused absence and not counted towards credit denial.
Yeah, I'll add, that I'm not opposed to having language like that in the handbook. And I can't think of a situation where a student, was in credit denial as a result of, being dismissed by the nurse or being sent home by, the counseling department for whatever reason. But in the honor of trying to protect somebody who might slip through the cracks, again, I'm not opposed to language like that being
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand, if I may. So hypothetically, you have a student with some kind of chronic illness. That student comes in the morning and they're fine, but by 10:30, the day is deteriorated. They're no longer okay. Parent has to come and get them. That kid's gone 23 days, gets sent home 23 days because of that chronic illness. There's a potential for that child not to advance to the next grade, despite having completed coursework, testing, adequate grades, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, that's my problem.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm with Member Keegan on this one.
Yeah, and again, I can't, in my 3 years, think of a situation where, that's the case. We do have embedded interventions, because at the end of the day, it's also about the student getting what they need to move on to the next grade level. So we do, for the students that aren't where we need them to be, as a result of, having to miss an abundance of school, we do have the embedded interventions that they can be a part of, Saturday school, holiday break interventions, to do class credit recovery.
So it sounds to me like this should, I say should be, but that has bit me in the past. This should be an easy one. I mean, if we're catching kids that we aren't intending to catch, we should put some discretionary language in here.
So, Member Shabilia,
Listen, I'm good
If
for
we
like
were-
2 or 3 a day.
we were on the same wavelength just now. As I'm looking at the language, it's very clear that in the unexcused part where it says dismissal for the remainder of the day prior to 10:30, I think that is an easy ask for us to put language that goes with that, right? Dismissal due to illness or safety concerns at discretion of the school staff can change that to excused. I think we can put language there that leaves sort of what you said the practice is, but actually have it be explicitly written here, that there's that opportunity for that, if they're dismissed, parentheses, if it is due to X, Y, and Z, the administrator can actually change that to excused. Do you think that fits? I think that fits there the best. Is that what you were thinking, Member Shabilia? Am I close?
Yes.
Okay.
I just think that we don't want to work so much in the black and white because we all live in the gray.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and it just gives explicitness to the nature of even the administrators being able to have that flexibility to change that when a student is sent home ill or the school is deeming the student needing to go home for safety reasons. Does that make?
That's exactly what I'm looking for. Yes.
So I'm typing that suggestion in right now. Are we nodding? Is that like, is everybody in? I saw like 4 nods, so I'm feeling that we're in consensus of that, and this is the place I would add it. Okay. Got it.
Any other discussion on the 9 to 12 handbook?
If due to,
Member Shabilia?
Just would like to see that the changes we made in the K-8
yeah,
float over as appropriate.
the 2 that we agreed on? Is that what?
I mean, the bus one, which I assume is going to be less of an issue at the high school, and
Yeah.
the
policy I'll remove,
policy, yes.
and the plagiarism is already in the high school,
Plagiarism's
needs to be
already
go.
there. Yep.
Yep, got it.
Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like the guidance counselor department language, the revisions. The only concern I had was the students meeting with the guidance counselors and building their schedules for the following year. Like, again, I went to high school, I went to college, I went to grad school, but I don't know what my kids personally, what they can handle, what they can't handle, because on a day-to-day basis, they have instructors and outside classrooms and stuff. The building the schedule for the following year, I think requires a certain level of expertise that I'm not there on a day-to-day basis that they would have. That language there, as opposed to gathering the course requests, was like, okay, the parents are gonna work with the kids to go over their requests, but I think a guidance counselor can guide that individual. You might be overloading your course load. You might be, you're a high achiever, why don't you do additional courses? Why don't you go into junior ROTC? Why don't you go into the vocational profession? I see you have a talent. I think we're losing that with the language that was changed. This is my opinion on that. I like the header.
What section are you looking at, Member
It's
Willett?
The guidance, school counseling department, and I like the header because it's more like an open door policy. You know, as opposed to setting up an appointment or email, you're gonna have these crisis intervention situations, or even a check-in for kids, to say, I have an issue, can I talk to you for a few minutes? And I think it's more of an open door policy with the guidance counselors, and I like that approach. The other thing was gathering their course requests, so it's more like the impetus is on the parents, and some parents, again, they're working multiple jobs. They do the best they can of tracking their kids. They're not there on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know why taking that from the guidance counselors, what the impetus for that is. But building schedules, I think, is a very important component, I thought, of the kids developing a good pathway to sophomore year, junior year, senior year. That's just my opinion, my 2 cents. But I like the header at the beginning. Thank you.
Any other inputs? All right, so the motion is on the floor to vote. All those in favor of the 2024-2025 9 to 12 handbook to include policy AC, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Thank you. The ayes carry. Thank you, appreciate it. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, Mr. Corrett. That was perfect timing, you sitting back
May I
there.
have a motion and a second to approve Brandy L. Kwong, Superintendent of Schools, as the FY25 board member to Crest?
So moved.
Second.
Hang on, I gotta keep reading. Gina Bozek, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, as delegate.
Mr. Chairman.
So was,
Oh, you had a motion by Member DeZoglio and a second by Member Keegan.
thank you very much, appreciate that. Discussion,
Yes.
go ahead.
Dr. Kwong. I guess my question here is I reached out to, I don't remember his last name, his first name was Eric, at Crest, because I didn't have an answer, and Member Donovan couldn't provide me with one on short notice. So,
That's the business manager at Crest.
he was the first guy on the website who had an email address. So,
That's not a good sign. Okay.
not to call into question your ability or desire, but why is it always the superintendent?
So, good question, because I thought,
seems
my first year, I said, this
Conflicty
is,
to me.
it is, except, so it's all made up of all superintendents of member districts, and it mostly is that way because we're making decisions on behalf of the school district. There are some things that we bring back. The mayor might get something as a chair. I have to then speak on behalf of the betterment of the collaborative as a point of view from the whole district. So there's a special ed administrator leadership cohort that meets with Crest as well. This is just, it's a wider view. We talk about finance, we talk about municipal law, we talk about capital improvement plans, we talk about things that are not special education related. So it's much like what you guys do here, so it's not a special education focused conversation. It's just,
Right.
it's a little different.
And, I mean, that was the way I justified it in my mind, as it's the school committee for the Crest.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
That committee is also setting rates for all the member districts.
They are.
And as the superintendents of all those member districts, for you folks to be setting your own rates, it looks questionable from the outside, me just now realizing what's happening.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was history there that I may be missing, or...
There's no history. I mean, I had to take it's not an oath. I had to take we all have to take a sort of, it's not an essay. I don't know how to describe it. It's by the state, I have to take it. Every member who's on the board has to take every 2 years.
Ethics training?
It's kind of an ethics training for the collaborative to understand that while I'm sitting on the board of the collaborative, I have to act in best interest of the collaborative. Understanding that, I am also one of the 4 most sending school districts to the collaborative. My investment in those conversations is very high. I go to every single one. I don't miss a board meeting, right? My investment in Crest Collaborative is very high. That relationship is very important to our district, for sure. I'm not saying it isn't for others, but I also have to make sure that when I'm there voting, I'm not just voting on what is best for Methuen Public Schools. So it's a weird place to be, and we all talk about that when we're in our board meetings. And sometimes there are it's the same like here, sometimes there are no votes from certain superintendents because we don't agree, but it's a majority vote.
In your opinion, should it be the superintendent of each district, or should it be someone else?
It can be a school committee member as well.
I think we have...
Not anymore, but yes, so right now, I don't think any district has a school committee member as their delegate, but that can be the person.
But what is your opinion? Should it be you? Are you the most qualified person? Because I can assure you that we certainly are not.
I don't know who else would be in the district, to be honest with you, to sit there. I mean, Gina Bozek is the delegate, so if I can't be there, I can delegate her to go and vote, right? Because we're a voting member. There are some districts that go that are not voting board members. So when we have to vote or we have an executive session, they have to leave. But I don't know who else would be. I think having had done this now for 6 years, I understand the system. We were involved in hiring a new director, executive director, familiar with the programs there. Again, our relationship is really strong with Crest Collaborative for a lot of reasons. And again, the conversations are much like here. It's budget, it's finance, it's capital improvement plans, how much money are we putting in? There's different accounts for collaboratives too, so it's understanding an OPEB account versus, they have accounts you can put money in to pay for their capital improvement plans because they don't have a city that can pay for capital improvement. So it's a different process that we've all learned. So I would say at this point, I'm probably the most knowledgeable just because I've been doing it the longest. And it is, again, it's, whenever there's a special education focused conversation, I certainly would consult with my team if there's anything there that would bring up something where I'm unsure of.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting process. And it is hard, I will say, it is hard. There are times when we have to vote, and sometimes it's financial, and you have to weigh what is best for my own district, but what is best for collaborative, right? I'm supposed to be acting on the best interest of the collaborative, but not everybody, we don't have agreements, just like you all, right? There are people who vote yes and no on almost every item.
Sometimes in one night.
Yes.
All right, so.
Contracts, we do contract negotiations. I get to live it twice in that setting too.
I'm getting tired, so I'm getting humorous. Okay, so the motion is on the floor to approve Dr. Kwong as the FY25 board member to Crest with Gina Bozick as the assistant superintendent as a delegate. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, carries unanimously. May I have a motion and a second to approve Superintendent Kwong's 2023-2024 evaluation?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by the
You all hooked up?
vice chair, seconded by member Shabilia.
Yeah. The yawn. No, we're all getting
Discussion.
tired.
I assume there's discussion coming here.
Yes, I
Right.
believe Ms. Donovan is going to.
So my job tonight is to give everyone a background about the process and how we moved through it. I also will be reporting out on the findings, and then I'm sure there'll be a discussion and hopefully a vote. So here's a little background about the superintendent's evaluation. Slides are up there. I'll make sure I can share it. I just put this together. The whole evaluation system is designed by DESE. This framework that we're working off of applies to all educators. And so the evaluation of Dr. Kwong really mirrors the evaluation that takes place for every single teacher, service provider in our district. PAs also are evaluated. It's a different process. It's our role as a school committee. We have two big jobs: to do the budget and to supervise the superintendent, and part of that being the evaluation. The interesting thing, and it is, all this information comes from the DESE site, is our superintendent is evaluated by a collective body, which is not happening in the rest of the district. And this collective body brings a wide variety of expertise. We're not all experts in education, we're experts in all sorts of things. And that makes this a particularly challenging process in order to provide transparency and fairness and a deep understanding of what we need to move our district forward. And I didn't know this until this year. The superintendent is the only city employee to have a public evaluation. So this information is out there. No one else is being evaluated publicly. So I'm sure that's one of the perks of your job, Dr. Kwong.
That may have changed with social media, but yes.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah, formally. That's a really
Formally
good
and
point.
required.
Yeah, what is that? The court of public opinion,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Right. So in the next slide, and thank you for helping me out here, is just basically what the cycle looks like. It looks like this for every other teacher across the state. Starts off with the self-reflection, creating the goals, the plan, then testing the waters, doing what she said she wanted to do and seeing how it works. The formative assessment typically comes mid-year, and I understand the facts were presented mid-year, and then here we are. And then it'll all start again. The evaluation is broken down into two parts, goals and standards. The goals, there's a couple of different kinds. The professional practice goal, which is what you referred to earlier, Mayor, would be the literacy goal. And that's really, what's the measurable impact on student learning? What's the best bang for the buck in moving kids forward? The professional practice goal is often about building capacity for providing, inclusionary services, whether it's behavioral or working with ELs, just making sure that everyone in the district is moving forward to provide the right instruction, the right environments for our students, all students. And then the district improvement goals were set up earlier this cycle by Dr. Kwong and approved by, not this cycle, how many years ago now? 3? 3 years ago, and approved by the school committee. The goals are set up, the ratings rather, it's did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met or exceeded. Dr. Kwong provided evidence for all the goals. I know we all got our big binders, and in doing the evaluation, our role was to look at that data very carefully to see what kind of progress was made in moving towards those goals. The second part of the evaluation are the standards. They're a little bit slightly different from the teachers. Superintendents are rated on their instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and the professional culture. Under each of these standards, there are indicators that we also looked at. For instance, under the management and operations, some of the indicators would include having a proper learning environment that's clean and operates and is open when it's supposed to be open. And those ratings go from unsatisfactory to exemplary. It's important to note that the goals that the superintendent sets are used as kind of a roadmap for administrators and teachers for the rest of the school year, because they will often build their own goals based on the vision the superintendent has. So, for instance, Dr. Kwong noted the use of talking points in one of her goals, and so many teachers this year opted to use as their professional goal learning how to use talking points and implementing it in their day-to-day engagement with parents. Okay, so, and off we go to the next one. So what was our role as school committee members? Each member got the evidence for the goals and standards provided by Dr. Kwong. She provided us with the DESE guidelines and the performance rating rubric, and we all scored these individually. The subcommittee was made up of Member Keegan, who served as chair, myself, and Member DiZoglio. So it was our role to synthesize the responses and create the evaluation, which will be voted on tonight. The subcommittee, I must tell you, we spent a few hours looking at everyone's input, going back to the rubric over and over, and looking for what DESE said would be a preponderance of shared views and supporting evidence. Now, DESE also did suggest we don't just put all our evaluations, add them up, create kind of an average, because there could be outliers that would skewer the response. For instance, if one member said everything was exemplary, that could skewer the response. So we took our job very responsibly and did rely on the tools provided by DESE. I think it's important to note that 6 of the 7 members did participate. Member Willett abstained and shared with the chair that he had concerns with the format. So let's talk about where this all landed. The student learning goal, which was a literacy goal, And that was all about improving literacy outcomes, significant progress. The professional practice goals: improving instructional practice to our Ls, revising safety plans to reflect the best practice in our community, and these safety plans are within each building. And finally, engaging and supporting family and community engagement, all significant progress. Now the progress towards the goals. Oh, I'm sorry, one more. District improvement goals. Significant progress, decreasing student rates of anxiety, depression, and trauma, and providing students from historically disadvantaged youth equitable access to education. And once again, all those goals were, Dr. Kwong provided data and plenty of evidence so we could make our decision. And then we come to the 4 standards. Once again, the ratings could range from exemplary, which would mean that the superintendent's work would be used as a model to other districts, to unsatisfactory. So under instructional leadership, here's some of the responses we had and shared with the state, or will share with the state if the vote approves it tonight. The majority of members significantly noted her use of data-informed decision-making and communicating that information. The other statements: she works hard to create a shared vision and hold staff to high expectations. Under management and operations, an indicator of law, ethics, and policy, exemplary. Multiple members also noted in their responses the challenges these days of hiring staff. Family and community engagement, the rating again was proficient. There were some mixed responses and suggestions that members would prefer more school-based academic events during the school day and some consistency across the 4 grammar schools. Under professional culture, proficient rating as well. Managing, although there was one area that was rated as needs improvement, and those indicators that I spoke of earlier that props up the standards. When aware of issues, Dr. Kwong responds in a timely and professional manner, but here lies in the rub, which everyone spoke about. Often issues that parents have, concerns families have, are reported directly to the school committee and not to staff or Dr. Kwong directly, or they show up on social media. And this results in conflict, some miscommunication, and delayed resolution. So one thing I'm sure that we'll be discussing tonight is how to address that, why parents are not going directly to the schools, and why they feel the need to go to school committee members, and how we can get to the root of that so we can facilitate a quick resolution to these issues. So what is delaying, why are parents not feeling comfortable doing that? So finally, our next steps. It's going to be a vote by the school committee tonight to accept or reject the evaluation. And then Dr. Kwong will use this information in our discussion tonight to create work on her goals for the next year, and which she will be presenting to school committee for input. And I'd like to thank, it was Chairman Keegan, Mr. DiZoglio. We spent a lot of time working on this, asking for clarification and going back to the DESE site. If any information people in the public are interested in, the DESE site has pages devoted to the evaluation of the superintendent. It's riveting. Okay.
Mrs. Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do this every time we do this, and Dr. Cohen, you already know what's the question. Are you updated with your license?
Yes,
Okay.
Welcome to Methuen.
yes.
All right.
Burn us once, never again.
Yeah, Other discussion? Yep, Member Maxwell, yep.
So I am just a little concerned, and there is nothing personal, but I'm just a little concerned with the report or the collaborative report saying that everything is met or exceeded. One specific goal that I had a concern with was the student.
Nobody said in the final report, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Chair, nobody said there's no exceeded is not noted in the final and what we hope to submit to DESE.
So
Sorry.
not what we have in front of us?
No.
There was an updated one sent last night with, and delivered to you this morning, and that exceeded, because it was, both of them were checked off. Exceeded was taken off.
Okay. Keep going.
That address you
Okay.
yet?
So the one specific one that I had a concern with was the student learning goal. My main goal with that kind of reflects, what Mayor Perry had to say. We have to remember that this evaluation is a 3-year evaluation. These goals were set by the school committee 3 years ago and the superintendent herself. The goal originally was 85%.
That's not correct. I'm sorry.
That's not correct.
The strategy plan was created 3 years ago. My
Sorry.
goals are every year and my
Every year.
evaluations every year.
Okay. So the only concern I had with it was that the original goal was 85%. Within the last 6 months, we moved it to 65%, which is great. And it's still, even at 65%, I think we were at 63%, 61%. So I just have a huge concern there. I do feel like there was some progress, maybe, but not the significant progress that we're noting. I also have concerns with the management and operations, and I think that somebody asks, why are parents going to school committee? Because parents voted for us, and parents expect us to do something about the issues that they're trying to get fixed, and they're not being fixed. So they're coming to us as school committee members to do it for them. So the management and operations, we get complaints and emails all the time from staff and parents and all of this, and so I'm not sure where the proficiency is there either. The family and community engagement, I do think that Dr. Kwong is making significant progress there. I think that she's trying. I think that there has been I think there's been great adjustments to the family and community engagement. I think that we could still grow, but I just wanted to state my opinion on the evaluation itself. I think that although there is some progress, it is not the progress we hoped for. And, this cumulative report reflects differently, so.
Member Shabilia?
So I can imagine this is all sorts of fun every year. I do think you kind of got a bad ball when they set up that first goal. And I know there was a lot of ambition for the 85%, but I think we all knew deep down that was never going to happen. It's too lofty. So I do agree with the change. I can understand Member Maxwell's position, but I think that positive progress towards the reading goals was made. Do I think it's perfect? No. Do I think it's ever going to be perfect? Still no. But I think we're doing the right things. You're doing the right things, and your team is doing the right things. And I think once we get another year in and we're now settled in our new system,
Systems, yep.
I think that'll be the real judgment day to see kind of how things are working and if they're working the way that we all kind of hope they are.
Yep.
I do want to drive home for not only you, but for the committee as a whole, that when you bring goals forward for next time, I want to be more anchored in reality about them. The previous school committee should never have allowed 85. It was a pipe dream. I do agree with Member Maxwell on her point about why members of the community come to us. I mean, it's tough to have to explain to a member of the community that we are legislators and not executors, and we can't do the things that they want us to do the majority of the time. But I think that it speaks greater to a culture that a lot of these families are not comfortable going to their building administrator or to the superintendent's office. And I don't think it starts with you, and I know for a fact it doesn't. This is a long-standing culture problem that unfortunately you inherited, and now you kind of got to fix. But I would like to see that continue. I know that there's been great connection made with the PTOs across the organization. I mean, I know I made note in mind to see more consistency throughout in that community goal. To really, I think that community goal goes hand in hand with the culture outside of the outside culture going into the school, the parents, the teachers, administration, because when you build that community, some of those walls will crumble. And I think that huge hurdles have been made, even in the 4 years my kids have been in the district. And I think that we still have lots of work to do, which is great job security. So, all in all, we all have lots of stuff we could complain about every single day. But I think everything's going progressively well, trending towards well. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Member Keegan?
So I just want to clarify something, that her goal was 65%. I understand we changed it midway, but it was changed. So our benchmark, our judgment point was 65%. And so she didn't meet 65%, which is why MET is not on there. But 63% is significant progress versus, say, 50%, which would be some progress, right? So that's where we came up with the significant progress, is that it's close to the 65%, but it didn't make it. So we didn't say MET. And so that's the rationale behind the significant progress, just so people understand that's where we're coming from.
I guess the only thing I'm going to add is, so I agree with almost everything that's been said. I will say that if you watch the school committee, if you pay attention, every meeting that the goals have been presented, I said, that goal's too high, we'll never get there. That goal's too high, we'll never get there, right? So, in my mind, you can't just evaluate to the 65%, because that came in the 11th hour. The change was in the 11th hour, right? I think it's a lesson for us all that we need to be more reasonable. So the danger here is, and I got great appreciation for the superintendent's position. Believe me, I step into this all the time on my own. If you put the goal too low, you're gonna have people saying, "What? You're striving for 68%? That stinks." Well, in my book, when you're 53, 68 is wonderful, right? So I just want to caution us. We have to be reasonable in our expectations of goals, and the superintendent has to trust us that we're going to see, I like you said, this is not a question of was progress made. Progress was made, right? Now the question will be, will it be maintained, right? And how will that translate, right? So the only caution I give is, write your goals, and I come from an environment that does the same exact thing with goals. It's called catchball, right? So they make theirs, it flows down, flows down, flows down. So the person at the bottom of the totem pole literally has a goal that hopefully, not in every environment, he or she can explain that this is why this goal is important to me, right? And to me, that literacy goal is the be-all and end-all, right? I'll be honest. So I'm not being what I consider overly harsh. I think you did a fabulous job, and I use the word fabulous intentionally. It's a circus. It's very difficult. You know, all the things that were discussed, you know, difficulties hiring staff, all of those things. I gave a lot of consideration to that when we looked at some of the other goals, right? When you look at, you know, how you, you know, underrepresented communities, how you get them to kind of buy in, right? We've made some progress there, you know, but again, I go back to, we gotta be careful how we set the goals, right? And we gotta, as a group, we have to make sure we stand with the superintendent and say, well, and I don't know what the goal is gonna be this year, right? So maybe it's 70, right? If it's 70, you know somebody in social media is gonna say, 70? What the hell, right? But there has to be an appreciation for where you are and where you're going, and how you're gonna get there. And if you don't have goals that people see as achievable, most often they discard them at some point, right, or stop paying attention to them. So I give you kudos for that. You didn't do that, and you updated us faithfully. So I think job well done. You go ahead. Did you have something?
Nope.
Oh.
Getting ready to crack my vote.
I'm ready, yeah. All right. So a motion on the floor is to approve the superintendent's 23-24 evaluation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
One nay.
And I'll vote
Thank-
present.
Present. Thank you. Do you think that your objection will be cast aside for next year?
I could explain quickly if it.
No, you don't have to
indulgence of-
explain it.
Yeah,
Just-
okay.
I'm
No,
just looking for-
I have a methodology to why I object to what was going on.
Okay.
I want an unvarnished evaluation of the superintendent, unencumbered by what Desi is telling me to do. And if it's 2 or 3 pages
Yeah.
of concerns, I want to have that part of the record. And again, not necessarily a reflection of the superintendent, but if I have concerns, goals, expectations coming in January, things that I thought I had to clean up as a school committee member.
Yep.
I don't want that pigeonholed into a couple of sentences. And that was my rationale. It was nothing against the committee. It was a stellar committee that oversaw the process. Again, the superintendent has always responded back to me.
Yep.
I just thought the format of, if you go into any type of job environment, you're not going to have just a couple of sentences of an evaluation. You're going to have detailed evaluation. You know, again, the metrics and the benchmarks and the test scores and the data, that's all good.
Yep.
But I want to have an unvarnished evaluation that's part of the record of concerns I have as a school committee member. And that I was not afforded that because of operating under DESI rules.
Okay.
And that was it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep. All right, moving on to finance and operations, just a note, FY '24 end-of-year final reports will be presented on September 9th, 2024. FY '25 monthly reports will begin on September 9th, 2024. Munis, we got a lot to look forward to. All right, contract awards. May I have a motion and a second to approve FY '24-25 Massachusetts School Buying Group sanitation and ware washing products and service for schools contract for $10,000.
So moved.
Second.
Member Shabilia moved, seconded by the vice chair. Discussion?
Question.
Go ahead.
For each of these contracts, I have noted a OSD contract number. Is there a reason we're putting all this stuff out to bid when there's already state blankets for it?
Well, we go through, that buying group is over, actually 400 schools. So we go through them and try to get a better price.
Do we know that they're better prices? So like this first one, FAC 114 and 118, cover all the products on this particular contract. Do we know that the rates are better? The rates and the ancillary services that are bundled into that are better under our GPO than they are under this?
Yes, otherwise we wouldn't be going through them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I hope there's some kind of.
some of the stuff being state, our GPO, be it as large as it is, maybe a third of what the state is buying under some of these particular contracts.
Right.
So, I want to make sure that we're not just dismissing the work that's already been done for us.
Right.
I know you're short people, so.
Well, they go out to bid. The group goes out to bid. It doesn't come out of my office.
Oh, well,
So
still.
they represent 400 schools, and they have lawyers, and they go out to bid for us, for the 400 groups, and we're happy. So far, we've been really happy with the prices we've been getting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, the ayes carry unanimously. Appreciate it. May I have a motion and a second to approve the FY 24-25 Massachusetts School Buying Group paper products contract for $150,000?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Zagio, seconded by the Vice Chair. Discussion. Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, carries unanimously. May I have a motion and a second to approve the FY 24-25 Massachusetts School Buying Group dairy contract for $300,000?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Shabilia, seconded by Member DeZoglio. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, carries unanimously. May I have a motion and a second to approve the FY 24-25 Massachusetts School Buying Group groceries contract for $1.5 million?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Shabilia, seconded by Member DeZoglio. Discussion. Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, carries unanimously. May I have a motion and a second to approve the FY 24-25 Massachusetts School Buying Group fresh bread contract for $80,000?
So
So-
moved.
Moved by Member Shabilia, seconded by Member DeZoglio. Discussion. I like that we have the word fresh bread in there, yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, the ayes carry unanimously. And one more. I have a motion and a second to approve the FY 24-25 Massachusetts School Buying Group fresh produce contract for $120,000.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Shabilia, seconded by Member DeZoglio. Any discussion? Does this include broccoli?
What's that?
Does it include broccoli?
Yes.
I vote against it. No, I'm just kidding. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Carries unanimously. Yeah, what,
No.
Is it-
Yeah, it's 3 minutes to 9, so we just have to do a motion to go
Yep.
past 9
I
o'clock.
need a motion and a second to continue the meeting past 9 PM.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member DeZoglio, seconded by the Vice Chair. Discussion? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Carries unanimously. Notifications of appointments and other personnel matters. May I have a motion and a second to approve one-to-one RBT and one-to-one program assistant?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by the Vice Chair, seconded by Member DeZoglio. Discussion.
So this is a request, so by contract, if we have IEPs that require services, which we've had 2 move-ins that require services since our budget process, if it happens before August 20th, we can hire a full-time staff and post it. This was not in the budget, so I need your approval to do that. These are required. I'm going to have to support these students. That's how this works. So I do need your approval for these 2 positions. After August 20th, if we have move-ins or IEPs changed by contract and then program assistant contract, those become long-term subs for the year. So there's no need to ask for, it becomes a long-term sub for the amount of time that we have the students.
Member Shabilia.
I understand the need, and I don't dispute that, but given what we went through with the budget, where's the money come from?
So, well, that's a school committee question to the superintendent. So the money is part of our contracted service and part of our circuit breaker funds. There's no other place for me to get those funds. That's why we have that account. which is what we're gonna have to be using for all, I mean, we're going to go into circuit breaker for contracted services because of all the positions we're filling. And so that is the purpose of that account, to help us with unexpected costs when we vote the budget. These would be those things. And they're gonna happen, this isn't the last of it. It's just you won't see the permanency of it until the next budget cycle. If they're long-term subs, they're not actually 1.0 FTEs in the district. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
It's contractual. After next week, we are not able to hire full-time
I
staff.
suspected circuit breaker, but I wanted to have it.
Circuit breaker, it's the only place we can go for contracted services, which is where we would go for these two positions, like many of the others. I mean, they will get posted, like all of our positions are posted. Great question.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, the ayes carry unanimously. Moving on to business from the committee. Would a member of the Transportation Subcommittee please start the update on the Transportation's Subcommittee and the Transportation Efficacy Report?
I'll help them out.
Yeah.
So the subcommittee wasn't able to meet because the final version came to us, I think on Friday or Monday of this week, so we didn't get a chance to pull the Transportation Subcommittee together. But so everybody has the same report. There's been no other, discussion in the subcommittee about it. But this was the report that we agreed on doing, this was the audit, if you will, of our transportation system, to see if there was something that we could do differently going into this school year, routes, busing, any kind of, I think when Rich Labrie spoke to us, he said sometimes we recommend an amendment to the contract or something like that if we need more routes, less routes. It appears what we have here is no expected or recommended changes to our routing system, but our next step would be working, and this is also part of the agreement with Rich Labrie and his group, is that they would help us write the RFP for the next transportation bid, which we really need to do like right now, because our contract with NRT Tremblay ends in June of 2025. So his recommendation was see what this brings with the data that we have, and put out an RFP with the suggested changes and reflections, which for me, when Ian and I spoke about this, I was pleasantly surprised about our routing and how they actually took the data and did all that, that they're not recommending that we change our system of routing, and seem to be getting, for the most part, and I'm not saying collectively and every day, and that there's some very specific recommendations he has for the RFP to making our contract stronger, which I don't think anybody here is in disagreement of with our conversations about transportation. So that's where we are. Ian is in the throes at this point of doing all the bus routes and trying to get everything finalized to send that out to parents in the next week.
At 7 o'clock today, the first email went out,
Oh, great.
transportation email.
Look at that.
And we'll get the routes out next week.
We're moving along.
Member Shabilia.
So in our first meeting with Rich, I guess I had higher expectations. I mean, I'm super happy that he reviewed our systems and procedures and all the hard work you guys do and said we do an awesome job, so congratulations. But I was hoping that we would get some meaningful recommendations that we haven't already discussed as a committee publicly to what to do next. We already knew that we needed to do an RFP. We already knew that it needed to have some stronger language. It needed to have service level agreements with repercussions in it. There needed to be check and balance in there. And that's what this tells me. I mean, I guess it's nice to have justification for our ask, but the reality is NRT already knows it's justified. So I guess I'm cautiously optimistic on how that RFP is going to be prepared and received by NRT and hopefully some of the smaller companies around that may be able to augment and take on portions of our program. I guess I'm just a little bit underwhelmed.
And I'm not gonna leave you out there alone, because I agree with you. And I guess, the point I would make is, there's, so if you're gonna show me tables and tables of data, 'cause I'm your dummy, I'll read it all, right? And not lost on me is the point I made to membership at the beginning of the meeting is, every expected load equals the actual load. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And that's just one fact, right? It's not possible, right? Completely not possible. And I guess I'm less concerned with the positive nature of the report. I do appreciate there's things we do good. But I think, we have to look at ourselves as a committee, as legislators, and say, we heard a lot from parents on dissatisfaction on the bus service. We had the bus company come here, and I don't think I'm going too far when I say that was a train wreck of a night, right? There were questions that were answered that night that still aren't truthful, right? And I point out the DOT thing just as one, right? Telling your drivers, go read this and make sure, that's not ensuring that they apply, right? And so I know I'm getting into, probably elements of the RFP that we should write since we've done so many. I just worry that the overly positive theme, we're gonna release it to the parents, and they're gonna say, oh, these guys aren't doing it, they're not even watching. When the reality is, to me, there has to be a much heightened emphasis, not on MPS, on NRT's half, to communicate, right? To identify issues so that we're not finding out about them like that incident last year, right? And I don't need to go back to that. So, to me, that's the hard part here. It's almost a glowing report. And I struggle with that, knowing some of the issues that we've had, communication-wise and otherwise. And so I think parents need to hear us say, okay, we're gonna write an RFP that's gonna be a little bit tougher, that, yeah, it has service level agreements, and it has teeth in it that says, what happens if this doesn't happen, right? What's the,
Consequence.
yeah, right? Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think you hit the home run tonight with your assessment in reference to that meeting as well. And a concern I had reading the report, I'll defer to Member Shabilia and yourself in terms of crunching the numbers. But the thing that jumped out at me was, in the report, it highlighted that the Methuen manager was let go. And the first time I heard about that was reading this report.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the superintendent was clued in, the director of security and transportation was clued in. I wasn't informed, and I think that's a very important point.
Yep.
And I don't like to, point fingers.
Yep.
But what was the catalyst for that the Methuen manager was let go by this company?
Right.
And it was something I would think in terms of PR to alleviate the concerns of parents or the legislators of an elected body.
Yep.
That you would tell us in detail why that person was let go. Was it because of that incident? Were there other incidents? Is it internally you have problems? Is it training? That was something, to me, was a red flag. A simple courtesy of a letter, notification to this committee that your Methuen manager was let go.
Yeah.
So we received notice that there was a change and that it wasn't let go, it was moved positions. That was what we got in a few weeks ago.
I've had lateral,
We
the
did hear
direct-
from them, because we,
When was the
but we were
timeframe?
informed, I don't know, a few weeks ago,
Okay, so-
sometime in July.
But so that happened just recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were informed, so we knew who our contact is. So Ian actually knows who our,
Do we know the reasoning for
no,
that?
and
They just
they're
decided.
not going to give me a reason. It's their personnel matter. The person was moved to a new position.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the quasi-public, private thing that I want answers as we fund a budget and we're accountable to the voters, and you're telling me, I mean, we just had a Secret Service director not giving answers on a major crisis. We're gonna tell us a person, the reason why it was just a lateral transfer? I don't buy that at all. And this is the problem that goes back to the beginning of, we're gonna try to improve internally. We might have a handbook, we might have training, we might not. We might make references to regulations like we're going to the registry of motor vehicles. And it goes just back to the same thing. So the RFP's gotta be the strongest vehicle on the planet. And I have concerns too about the FBI database, is that the first time we hire the drivers, they go through the FBI database, but then subsequent to that, they go to Corey, and I don't think Corey is a comprehensive system, and we have to shore that. But let's say we get a replacement driver, and we say, okay, we're gonna do an RFP, and we're gonna have FBI database on our drivers, but then you have a backup from outside the system. Are they gonna be under the FBI database in subsequent years? I mean, these, again, questions that we have, and the vehicle of the subcommittee, again, I commend the people involved in it. I'm not questioning the report. I think it was, again, it may be overly positive report. There was things that we can decipher from it. In terms of the numbers of like year to year of allocation of funds to transportation versus the average of other districts, that number too, I had a little bit of concerns about. I don't know if anybody else had that concern too, about what we do year to year versus what they said was the average of other communities, and somehow we were in that same frame. I didn't understand that.
Yep.
But again, we're moving the train, a lot of concerns. This is healthy, so
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I think what might make the most sense, and he was certainly open to coming to the subcommittee meeting or whatever we needed him to do if we, and I look at the three of you because you're on it, but if we schedule a subcommittee meeting with him, talk about the report, talk about the RFP, because that's the next step. We have to get that started with him, that's what we are contracted with him to do that work for us, right? So we want to be involved. So for me, does that sound like the next best step is to try to coordinate that next meeting with the three subcommittee folks and Rich? Okay.
That RFP, would we be able to review that as a subcommittee before posting?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I think that the subcommittee, the whole point of that would be to work directly with him on what the RFP says, like what his practice has been. This is his niche, right? So what is we want to make sure that whatever these pieces that we want in it are in it and strong and read the way we want them to read when people are actually applying, right, and responding to the bid that we put out. So yes, I would say that we'd all be actively involved in that in the subcommittee. Yes? Okay. All right, I will do that. Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent, would you please start the discussions on the Building Facilities Subcommittee, discussion/nominations with the recommended three standing agenda items for the subcommittee? Yeah.
This is the fact that I'm going to try to explain this and convey this message as late as it is. So I think what, and I know I'm not a member of the school committee, but what I'm proposing, just having some conversations, and I know there is best interest in the buildings. So we're not talking about like facilities use, basketball games, so we're not talking about that. But we have buildings right now, right? We have tenants in place, we have a lease, and I shared that with you. Unfortunately, we just didn't get it back in time from the group to actually make revisions and have it in front of you tonight. So I anticipate that for the 27th is my hope. But we have that happening that will entail potential renovations and movement and conversations that'll be large scale. We also want to have ongoing and very succinct conversations about the Pleasant Valley building and the Courier building right now, which Member Donovan brought up. And then the third one, what was the third one? Oh, managing the shared space. I'm sorry. So attendance in place has like a twofold. It's how do we manage that shared space, right? What are the procedures we're putting in place? Is it a MOU? Is it an agreement? I have something in writing for Delta Ed. What happens when there's multiple people in there? How do we manage that? I think that's a big one. And then what is happening, attendance in place, is going to be a big one over the course of the next year as a standing item. If indeed the lease comes back, we do approve it, that will be an ongoing conversation to make sure the committee is up to date with how is everything working and what big projects are we doing, and, right, so that there's a line of communication. And then the Pleasant Valley School and the Courier School, right? We want to have, again, succinct conversations to have with the school committee, to have with the mayor, because those are going to be larger conversations at the city council level. So I was trying to wrap my mind around, like, we're having all these sort of one-off issues, and it's a lot in my brain right now as I'm opening school. I'm trying to focus on our K-12 operations, but there's these things that are important to the committee and the process to keep us going forward in these areas, and we can't just not talk about them. So that was what I was trying to propose and trying to capture here, is having a subcommittee that is just talking about these issues, right? And again, it's probably not going to last forever, and these issues, these standing issues, at some point, we'll check them off and not have to talk about them as standing issues, also is my hope, right? We'll come to an agreement, we know what we're presenting to the whole body, we know what we're presenting to the city council, is these issues are getting resolved. That is always going to be my goal. So that is what I was thinking about and was able to talk to a few of you about when you brought the different issues to me. So that's what I am proposing tonight to the committee, in hopes that we can create this subcommittee and work together
And I guess.
on a common
I like
cause.
the way you said that, all that. The only caution I'd give is to us. So we have to, if we're gonna do this, and I'm all for it, we have to be careful that we don't slip into the execution space. Our job is not to tell you what to
Correct.
do.
Right.
Our job is to govern, if you will, right? Legislate, right? You said it perfectly earlier. Okay, this is how this has to be handled. And you have to handle it, or I have to handle it, or somebody has to handle it, right? So I just don't want to slide into
I
the
know.
execution space, right? Which,
I know, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I think this is one way to manage that conversation in a subcommittee group of, it's definitely, we all have a vested interest in this work. These topics we're all interested in them. You know, what is our level of authority
Yep.
as a body? What is my job as the superintendent, right? Those have to be clear lines. And what is, we may, as a body, whole body, decide on something that then we take it to the city council or the mayor, and it doesn't come to fruition. Like, we have to work with all parties and members to make sure that we're working in the best interest, what we're presenting, right? So there's a little of that.
That being said, I nominate Member Donovan.
Oh, okay.
I'll second that.
you accept the nomination?
That was quick, thank you.
Listen, the
One.
clock is
Who else
ticking and
would
we
like
got
to do
stuff to do.
Yeah, who else would like to be on this?
I'd like to nominate Member DeZoglio.
I will accept that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Go ahead.
2 or 3 members at best. I'm wondering if the mayor should be on that committee. I don't know.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I would say probably not, for the exact reason where he's execution, where he's wearing 2 hats right now.
The executioner?
He-
That's why I've stayed
Sort
out.
of.
Yeah.
But he's execution. Whatever we
Okay.
come back with where you guys come back with as a
Right.
body,
Correct.
it's going to be between the superintendent and the mayor to deal with.
Okay.
Right.
So,
In a subcommittee, we went through this, I think, with MASC, can be 2 or 3. We would prefer 3, just because 2 gets hard and it puts a lot on the 2 members. But if there's a third person that would like 2. We can start with 2. We can,
No, I'd like to nominate Member Shabilia.
sure.
there we go. Great.
Yeah, there you get 3.
Subcommittee king
We
over
have to
there.
vote on the nominations now? Or are we good?
Yes.
Everybody agree with the nominations? Anybody disagree with the nominations? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. So we have a building subcommittee,
Great.
and it consists of those 3 individuals that were nominated. Thank you all for stepping
Yeah,
up.
that's great.
Member Willett?
Thank you.
Again, I think it's a great idea. And what I emphasized during prior meetings, I want to envision in some fashion a balanced reserve account that comes out of these discussions. I think we need to have a balanced reserve account. In prior years, we declared it surplus buildings and we gave it back to the city. I think looking at the way the state is operating right now, the way the economy is, I think if you look at the vacancy rates in Boston for commercial property, there's a lot of canaries in the coal mine. I think going into future budgets, they're gonna be constrained. I think we really need to have, as a school system, a balanced reserve account to even out any inflationary, but also any recessionary periods. I think it's a disservice when we just go from budget to budget, we don't have a balanced reserve account. And I think this is an opportunity to have those discussions finally after decades. Thank you.
Okay. Member Donovan, would you please start the discussion on the audit update?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could get an update on,
You absolutely,
we are now.
you can.
Okay.
I said you can, because it says audit. I just finished redrafting it.
oh,
I've been a little tied up with CBAs, and I'm slower than I should have been, so I apologize. But I talked to Member Shabili before. I'm going to send it to him and to anybody else that wants to read it. So I had to break it into 2 pieces. That was the feedback from the people who didn't bid. So I think 18 people pulled the
looked
bid.
at it, right.
None of them returned a bid.
Mainly,
Right.
right.
So that's too high a number, so I sent procurement out to say, well, why? Right? And there were several nits, but the general thing was it's too broad. So you need to break it into 2 pieces, a financial, operational piece, and then a secondary piece, right? So I've done that. I'm happy to send it around to all of you and get your inputs before it goes back out. I would like to get it back out on the street next week,
Oh, okay.
but I can send it to you at the latest Wednesday morning. I'd send it tomorrow, but I'm taking a day off. I apologize.
Mayor, what are the 2 pieces? I'm sorry.
Say it again?
The 2 pieces, what are the 2 pieces?
I'm going to say it wrong, Christopher. It's a financial piece. So most of the people came back and said, separate the financial out.
Yep.
Bring the financial out. So I beefed that one up, and it talks about, our use of grants, our use of funding, our use of all the things. And it would include, a topic like a reserve fund. Is that something you look at, right? Or are there laws that prohibit that? So that's all one piece. And then the second piece is every bit as important to me. It's the culture and the morale piece, right? And we have to be careful with that piece. I understand that, so I want you all to read it. But I will tell you that the 2 previous large audits that we've done for the PD and the DPW, they both had really great feedback when it came to culture and morale, right? Really eye-opening things in some cases, right, as you know. So I think, it behooves all of us to take a look at it, to make sure it's representative of what we want to see. So I'll send it to you, and you can, you're welcome to edit and opine before it goes out. I'm happy to have that. But I just would like to get it out by Tuesday of next week. All right? And that's largely because I've been so delayed to get to it. So,
Thank you.
yep. Yeah.
Just a quick thing, in terms of GIC health review study, have we done that? I know other communities have done a review of their healthcare system.
We have not.
Okay, so I
We
would,
can.
I would like to
Yeah.
have that discussed.
Yeah.
Because I think if you look at other communities that are part of the GIC,
Yeah.
they say hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that, if it's not part of the audit, because you're looking at healthcare costs that are really out of our control. And then if you're looking at special education, it's based on the happenstance if you have a late arrival, and that's an unfunded mandate. So I know when we had the joint meeting with the city council,
Yep.
I know I brought up about the unfunded mandates. And that could be a drain on the system financially, but also could be a drain of paperwork requirements, both the federal and the state. So I don't know if that second component of the morale, because all the paperwork requirement and the secretaries are deluged,
Yep.
making sure all the requirements, and it might be, should be a paperwork reduction act at some point. But, you know, the GIC was always something for decades I was concerned about. And then also the morale of complying with paperwork and unfunded mandates.
Sure.
And also that, again, when you have a few cases with the circuit breaker, that really zonks your entire system. So hopefully those components are included as
You
well.
got it. I'll make sure they are.
Okay, thank you.
Member Keegan, would you please start the discussion on the school committee group email?
This has been an issue in my brain for a long time, but I just haven't had a good chance to bring it up. The school committee group email, the one that on our website that says email the whole school committee, goes to more than just the elected officials. And I feel like it surprised me to find out that there were other people on that group alias other than the elected officials. And so I feel like it's important to disclose that on the website as to who that group email actually gets sent to. So it's not only elected officials and the mayor, it's also the mayor's chief of staff, Martha, and the superintendent. And so I feel like when somebody comes to the website and says, oh, I'm going to email the whole committee, they don't know that they're emailing other people. And if other people happen to email, like respond or whatever, it's a surprise that there was somebody else on that email. And so I would like to just propose that we disclose who that email is going to, is all.
Sure.
I'm open to the discussion, but for me, I just feel like people need to know that they're emailing more than just the school committee. But I'm willing to have that conversation.
So my question to Member Keegan was, are we looking to disclose or restrict? Because I can reasonably see an argument for both.
Yeah.
I also can see an argument for both. I was trying to be less controversial and just use the disclosure.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll be the controversial person. But yeah, I feel like this, when it says school committee email, it should only be the school department and the mayor. No offense, when I heard about the chief of staff being on it, and no offense to her, I don't feel like that should happen. That's just my opinion. She's not part of the school committee. It should be going to your email. I always thought it just went directly to you. But that's my opinion on it. Martha's on it because she's here. Like, she's here at these meetings. I have no problem with her being on it. Now, if the chief of staff wants to come to the meetings and sit in on it, then, yeah, I would include her on it.
Well, the chief of staff is on, because she sits in for me in many occasions. That's the
Yeah.
reason.
Oh,
You guys want her off, we'll take her off. Right? I mean, if that's
Yeah.
what this is, if this is all about the chief of staff being on there, then just say it. I mean,
I'll say it.
around,
No, but
right?
here's
We'll
the
take her off.
No, but it's
You'll be
just, listen, I'm not controversing, I said it. I said I don't think the chief of staff should be on it. That's just my opinion.
And I bow to the will of the committee, I respectfully disagree. She is me. She is me. We are one and the same. It's like saying to the superintendent, you can't share it with your assistant superintendents, right? It's the same thing. Yeah, go ahead.
So do we need to take a vote on this?
Yeah,
Where are we with this? I'm all in for
I don't know
disclosure.
what we're voting, I don't know, we're just voting to eliminate the chief of staff.
And it could be either way. Honestly, it was something that has been done forever because the chief of staff often, and this is how I understand it. We didn't change anything when we rolled from mayor to mayor, superintendent to superintendent, that often the mayor's chief of staff and the superintendent's executive assistant would read the emails and make sure that everybody was in compliant. So if there were messages as the secretary to the committee that I didn't read in time, and I, the position, not me, but, so if you want to remove me, Martha, and the chief of staff, I totally get it. I can have it done tomorrow. If you want to disclose that we're on it, you can do that too. I am open for anything. It's a system that has been just in place and we haven't changed it. And I'm not, I have no feelings one way or the other.
See, Mr. Chairman, and I'm trying to be diplomatic here. When I came into the school committee, I've had not once but twice, 2 people from the municipality tell me that I should not be replying to all on emails. And 24 years at the State House, in 13 years, I've never replied to all on any email that I can recall.
Yeah.
Because that opens up to open meeting violations. But not only one advisory, but 2 advisories. Now, was it condescending? I'm gonna
Yes.
try to be diplomatic. I did not like it, because you better respect the demarcation, checks and balances. You have an elected school committee versus municipality. We already have an attorney that advises us. I don't need the city attorney advising me. All right? And it's, again, open meeting, I got the packet, I read it. The ethics, I've been familiar with it. I don't need someone telling me. Now, again, I know who the person is that replies to all at times. We know who it is. I'm not going to invoke that person's name. But I don't need a little birdie in my ear saying, by the way, don't reply to all. I don't need that. So in that spirit of that cooperation, the mayor's the chairman as an elected official in the school committee, and that's it. If he wants to delegate and refer that to his chief of staff or to the janitors at the Searles building, by all means, go and do that. And we have a lot of confidential matters. I think we really need to shore up the system. I agree with the vice chair. We are the elected school committee. We have our own council, and that's it. When we go into this, we're gonna have CC. That opens up a big floodgate, and I don't want that. So that's it. Thank you.
I just point out to you that there were certain times, right? Look at the youth center thing. So I'm gonna give you guys feedback. This committee, the meeting spiraled out of control and got into managing the nonprofit, in my view, when I watched the tape. Right? Some of the discussion was about managing the nonprofit. The nonprofit agreement, the rental agreement, has been with the city solicitor because he opines on city buildings. You want them off? Say it. We'll take them off. I got no problem. Right? But
He's not on the
Chief
email.
of staff
No,
is
no.
on. She's there.
He's not on our email.
Respect, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor. When I ask questions, whether it's NRT or a nonprofit, and I had a follow-up conversation the very next day with the auditor, and I expressed my concerns, right? Then we take a final vote, either as a city council or a school committee, and that's it, right? But someone's interpretation of you're going too far, right? Who makes that judgment? Who puts up a bumper? I've never, a city council, again, I've had mayors in my ear saying, whoa, wait a minute, you're supposed to go everything through the mayor's office. I said, excuse me, I was an elected city councilor at large. You don't show me the door. It's checks and balances. So like, I'm trying to be, you know, that conversation I think was a healthy, just like with NRT. If I had someone after say, you know, Mr. Willett, you really laid into that company, you know, I don't know if you were out of bounds. I said, well, I don't give a care. I'm elected by the people. They'll make the final determination. So I, you know, again, I don't mind going through classes. I don't mind doing online with the ethics. I don't mind having a packet on open meeting law. And again, when I came into this school committee, I know there was an open meeting law violation on the minutes. I had to correct it. I didn't get an advisory from the city solicitor. I didn't get a chief of staff email. So like, I can go right back to you on that front, and I'm trying to be working with the parties. And like, I sat down regarding the audit, and that was another thing. Even Councilor Zani had concerns about it, and she served prior on the school committee. I had the dual thing of serving on the city council and serving on the school committee. I would never invoke my will upon the school committee. That's a separate elected body. Any concerns that would go through the superintendent, individual members, or the mayor's chair. And, you know, we gotta be careful of what we're saying on stuff. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree with that last statement fully. We gotta be careful what we're saying. So I'm asked, do you
Yeah, we need
want
a
them off?
motion.
You want them off? We'll take them off.
Somebody needs to do a motion one way or the other, disclose or
Yeah.
take them off.
Oh, sorry.
I would like to make a motion to just do the disclosure.
Second.
Motion on the floor to do the disclosure, and a second. All those in discussion?
Should be a roll call vote?
No?
Sure.
Oh, yes.
You gonna call it?
Need a
Who
second.
wants a roll call?
I heard him. Without Martha, I have to handwrite all this.
Sure, she's
All right.
watching. I don't think she is. She's probably sleeping. I know, I hope she's sleeping.
Member DeZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan.
Yes.
Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett.
I'm gonna say yes for now, yeah.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
So I'm disclosing it on the website of who's in that
Yeah.
email when we post the email. Okay. I'll do that first thing in the morning.
All right.
Okay, last bit, we do have an executive session.
We do. So with no further business discussed this time, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the business portion of this meeting of August 12th, 2024, and go into executive session?
So moved.
Moved by the vice chair. Seconded by member Donovan. Thank you. No vote yet. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Unit A, Unit C, custodians. We will not reconvene into open session at the conclusion of this executive session. Now I need a roll call vote. Sorry.
Member DeZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan. Yes. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Maxwell.
Yes.
Member Shabilia, yes. Member Willett. Yes. Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 9:37 PM.
Good night, Methuen.